Sleeves down, man. Apparently we can. Nice long sleeves, Jordan. And we are live. Welcome to the NFL First Look around these parts at Stokastic's YouTube channel. We'll talk about OddsShopper too at some point in time. Week 5 in the NFL. I am Josh Engleman here to break it all down, but I'm going to do it as quickly as I possibly can. Basically like 25 minutes. That's what you get out of me. I fluff you guys up so that we can go to the NFL deeper dive and then to NFL Live Before Lock. 3.5 hours of NFL DFS coverage for this week. We've got buys. We've got the London game going right now. Liverpool's on, not going well for me. Joseph, I assume you're going to be in chat letting me know. Let's have some fun today. We got a weird slate. We've got the shrunken amount of games. So we're starting to see ownership climb. We're going to have more extremes in the small field. Loughy in the house. You like that I'm the fluffer? Look, I'll do what I can for you guys. Loughy, Ben, Spags coming up next at the top of the hour, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We'll talk about that. Oh man, I got some pretty extreme exposures to certain guys. Some are already chalky. We're not going to feel bad about it. Some less chalky. We're going to get into every bit of it. We're going to start with the running backs. Michael says, Josh looks like he was drinking last night. I wasn't. I mean, I had a cocktail at dinner, but that is not a lot. I'm drinking right now. It's mimosa mornings. We know that. What else would you do on a Sunday morning when you got to talk about DFS? First thing you should have in your hand every single Sunday is a mimosa. Maybe you're a Bloody Mary person. That's not me. I like them, but I'm specific to them. It's got to taste a very specific way. And too many people now, there's too much going on with the Bloody Mary. I'm not looking for, there are some things that I'd be cool with. You put like a jumbo prawn in a Bloody Mary. I think that's going to be good. Underrated add-on to a Bloody Mary. Slim Jim works perfectly. People will put like a fried chicken sandwich and stuff on top of it now. It's become too much. I don't need a meal when I get a Bloody Mary. And that's why a little splash of OJ, some champs. That's the way to start the day. Mimosa for the fluffer. Exactly, Bushy McBush. Exactly. Drinking gin fizzes in the morning. I don't know what a gin fizz is. That has egg in it, doesn't it? Am I right? Wrong? I don't know. He's definitely drunk. He's not definitely drunk. But I'm working on it. It's Sunday. What else? What do you people do on a Sunday? It's the NFL, man. It's October 8th. What else am I going to do? Hot toddies all day. It's cold up and down the East Coast. I woke up, it was like 50-something degrees. I saw Loughy make a post about it already. Guys, you gotta wake up and have a little bit of alcohol. That's the East Coast way. I don't know what the rest of y'all do, but a little bit of the sauce is the way to do it on the weekends for NFL. That's just it. It's all I've ever known. College football on Saturdays, same issue. NFL on Sundays. All right, let's get into it. We are here. Peter knows. Tropical Lightning. No doubt about it. It's the best IPA on the planet. Get some if you can. Fantastic. Michael with the super chat. Let's hit it right out of the gate. Happy birthday to my boys, Anthony and Thomas. I'm going to assume that is your sons. I'm going to assume that they are twins. Otherwise, what a ridiculous set of odds there to have two people born on the exact same day. So we're going to assume that they are twins. Happy birthday to Anthony and Thomas. Are we ready to talk some football? I am. Hit that like button. 500 people in the house right now, just 77 likes. This prompt alone will get us where we need to be. We're going to talk about Owner's Box in a little bit. We're going to talk about every single position quite quickly, I might add. But chat, everybody, hit Anthony and Thomas with a happy birthday. We're going to get into it right now. Running back, there's only one place that we can start at running back for today. Very simply, that is going to be David Montgomery. 6,600. He is the chalk running back play for today, and he should be. This is going to be the day that he's awful. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Am I playing a ton of David Montgomery today? Absolutely. Don't see any way around it. I'm not going to see Gibbs. This is Montgomery's show. It appears to be Montgomery's show even when everybody is healthy. That didn't work out all that great for me in the past. So I assume we just jam David Montgomery and everything works out. That's what we're supposed to do today. I am doing that. 60% of my lineups contain David Montgomery, but I want to be clear. Now that I know this, you guys know what kind of jinx I am. David Montgomery is going to be awful. If Craig Reynolds is going to get like 2 vulture TDs today, that's going to happen. We know this now. Bots are already into chat. We're going to have a good day. You got to play David Montgomery, first guy that you are putting in to every single cash game. If we jump to the top of the salary tier, I do think $7,700 Bijan Robinson is in a nice spot. That's what's going to happen when you get to face Houston. So I don't mind paying all the way up for $7,700 Bijan Robinson. I think he's on his own tier. I think he looks a lot better than a $7,500 Derrick Henry. After that, you're dropping down to a $6,800 Jonathan Taylor. Doesn't seem like this is going to be the week for that. So if you're just looking for paying up, yes, for Bijan Robinson, okay for Derrick Henry, stay away from Jonathan Taylor. We got to get into the biggest thing for today. The Jesse might drink bleach on Twitter game of the week, Miami Dolphins. We got to talk about Achane and Mostert for today. This is the most interesting piece of today. We have Achane coming in 6,100. We've got Mostert coming in 6,200. Now, these guys are slightly split, I guess would be the best way to say it, in ownership. However, we need to talk about what these guys are supposed to be for today. I, right now, have the Miami Dolphins rushing props pulled up. I'm using FanDuel Sportsbook for right now. Use your sportsbook du jour. This is just the easiest one that I can get to, that I can click to quickly. These guys basically have the same anytime touchdown prop. Yeah, I'm going to say that again. These guys basically have the same anytime touchdown prop. What do we do with that? Minus 130 for Raheem Mostert, minus 130 for Achane. Those are the two props if you want to bet on their touchdowns. Now, I think we could all agree scoring a touchdown is going to go a long way in having the guy that wins this slate for you. You need touchdowns. You're hoping for 2. Those guys have the same touchdown odds. Peep the ownership. Jordan, you got that up on the screen right now? I assume you do. The ownership for Achane on our site, 23.5 currently. The ownership for Mostert, 3. Now, do I think they're going to be a little bit closer than that? Sure. But there is an extreme gap between the ownership for Achane and the ownership for Mostert. And it doesn't seem to bear out in any of the publicly available prop information, at least from a touchdown standpoint. Achane has a slight lead in rushing yard props if you want to use this sort of stuff. Remember, limits are low here. We don't want to overreact to any specific props. But if you're just going by the readily available information that is out there, it seems like Achane is either slightly overowned or Raheem Mostert is wildly underowned. I think it's a little bit more of the second thing than the first thing, because I still think that Achane looks like a great play. I do think he should be someone people are focused on, getting some ownership alongside Joe Mixon at 6,400, who I think looks exceptional today against Arizona. Alvin Kamara, I think, looks pretty solid. Breece Hall at 5,400. These are guys that should be getting some ownership. But getting the Dolphins backfield correct, maybe correct is neither guy, and it's a passing game. Who knows? Getting that relationship correct, paying attention to that ownership, I think is the most important thing you can do today at running back. I'm not telling you not to play Achane, but be aware of what that ownership is showing for Raheem Mostert, because the betting market is telling you a different story. Now, if we're looking at the rest of running back, I don't have too much else to add here. I've touched on the names that are standing out in the ownership, at least to start. If we want to filter it down just a little bit further, based on our last run of ownership prior to this show starting, it is Montgomery at the top, Mixon, Achane, Bijan Robinson. We talked about those guys. I mentioned Alvin Kamara. He's in at 6,300. Those are the guys that you're focused on most for cash games. If we're talking about larger field contests, maybe some of the ways you want to zig differently. I rarely see it at running back because it becomes very difficult. You know the dudes that are going to get some work. And that's why it all funnels at running back. I think wide receiver is the easier spot to be like, oh, I like this pay down guy or that pay down guy. I basically don't have any exposure below Breece Hall. Very small amount of Dameon Pierce, Miles Sanders, McLaughlin, Pirine. Like, you can have these guys in one or two lineups. Some of these guys can pop up. But in terms of getting any volume, I draw the line at Breece Hall, 5,400. I'm going to cheers you guys with a little bit of mimosa. The running backs portion of this one is the most interesting portion. And it's that Mostert Achane thing. But remember, if you are playing an NFL cash game today, David Montgomery is the first name that you are clicking on, bar none, not up for debate. Anything else we should touch on here for running back? I guess I'll put this out there for everybody. If it matters to you, Alvin Kamara is not a guy that I'm getting to. I am basically doubling up on the Joe Mixon side of this one. I think that game just looks fantastic for Cincinnati. I'm hoping this is the like wake up call that the Bengals need. All right, hit that like button. We're over 760 viewers. We love seeing that as well. I know we're going to get updates to some stuff on the site. Ownership is running, should be done shortly. Keep your eyes peeled for that. Got plenty of time before we get there. Let's get into the wide receivers now. The other main piece of today. Lots of interesting items that are pushing guys up my list. Now we're going to go to the top of the order here. Justin Jefferson, 9,400. Obviously, always play him when you can. He's 20% owned. He should be 20% owned. He's really, really good. Interesting spot against Kansas City. I don't think it's a spot you're all that worried about. You're expecting mild shootout. If you can get to Justin Jefferson, by all means, do that. I have a little bit more of Tyreek Hill at 9K. I think these guys look very similar, but if you want to go one over the other, I'm not the guy that's going to tell you this is the dude. I think they're basically the same guy. And for now, I have more Hill. If you see it another way, I'm not going to tell you different, but you should pay up for both of them. Don't pay up for Cooper Kupp at 8,600. That spot, I think, seems a little bit more reasonable. The guy that I want the most today, favorite potential pay up, Jamar Chase at 7,900. Now, I think that I've said that on weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4 of this season, but we're going right back to it here. 7,900 for Chase, taking on an Arizona Cardinals team that, we need to be honest, I don't care what happened. I don't care that they have a win now. This is a team that's not very good. We know this. 30th in coverage at PFF. Someone is in line for a big day for Cincinnati. I already told you I have Mixon. I am loaded up on Chase. We're not going to have T. Higgins. If you think it's Boyd, go there too. I have him, happily paying for Boyd. But I want Jamar Chase. That's the dude I'm looking for most of anybody on this slate at the top end of wide receiver. As we work our way down and look at some of the guys that are pulling ownership, Marquise Brown, I think, looks pretty solid at 5K. Tyler Boyd, as I mentioned before, 4,500. No Higgins, just going to have a little bit more opportunity. And as I mentioned, Arizona is not good. But we got to talk about one specific spot on this day, because we talked about David Montgomery at running back. But something else has opened up in Detroit, and that's Josh Reynolds at a minimum at 4,200. I don't know how to get away from Josh Reynolds today. No Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, basically, Detroit's missing two guys that take snaps on offense, and they're two of the four best dudes they're going to get to do that. So I'm going to Josh Reynolds heavily. This is the first value guy I want to go to, but I'm not stopping there. 3,300 for Khalif Raymond. I want to go that direction as well. I see the Lions very clearly as the team you want to go to for value wide receivers, whether it's Reynolds, whether it's Raymond, whether it's Sam Laporta in the future for 5K when we get to tight end. You have to go to Detroit. One, they're playing Carolina, a team that they're fine at best, average at best, whatever you want to hear there. We've got Detroit missing half of their backfield and missing their primary wide receiver. We're just going to want Montgomery Reynolds, Raymond, Laporta. That's the focus for me today. Detroit is going to be a team I have a ton of. Are they going to be chalky? Yes, they are. But that is just something that you deal with for the rest of your lineup. If you go to a chalky Montgomery, Reynolds, Raymond, Laporta in these cases, if you go to that chalk, that's fine. It's all about what you have in the rest of your lineup. You can't just immediately run away from chalk across the board. Perfect example. Let's say you want to go to this Lions lineup. You want to get your Josh Reynolds, your Khalif Raymonds, your Laportas. You grab Goff. You go for the 3 wide receiver stack here in Detroit. Make your running back Raheem Mostert instead of HN. It's that easy to have a different construction right out of the gate where you want to play the highest owned guys a little bit, a lot of it potentially. But it's where you're filling in everywhere else. And I think this is the interesting spot to do that if you go to someone like Raheem Mostert after you eat all of that Detroit chalk. So get yourself Josh Reynolds at 4,200. Excellent value option. Get yourself Khalif Raymond. Excellent value option. These are the guys I have my eye on at wide receiver for today. Wan'Dale Robinson also popping up quite a bit for me. Oddly enough, 11% of a 3K wide receiver, that matters. If you're looking at a team like the Giants for today, I think it makes a little bit of sense. That's my all the way pay down guy. Do I prefer Khalif Raymond? I do. But at 3K, I think Robinson looks fine. As we work our way back up in terms of ownership, I don't see anybody that's either taking like a giant stand. I mean, I've touched on all of these names: Chase, Hill, Jefferson, Raymond, Robinson, Marquise Brown, Tyler Boyd. I said all of those names to start off at wideout. We don't have much time already. We're already at 9:48. Where does the time go, guys? We're already up to 922 people. I've got nothing else to say at wideout. Load up on the Lions. That's the key tenet for today. Hit that like button. We need to get up over 200 likes. Easy. Jordan L says Wan'Dale will probably be a bit higher than 12%. Let's see what I got in my sheet right now. Yeah, I agree. Especially in smaller field stuff, I think you're going to see something up in that like 20-25 range. We got to talk Owner's Box, guys. We got to talk the premier sponsor of this show. We've talked about them every week. I'm in this contest already, so I'm putting my money where my mouth is. You should sign up at Owner's Box, clicking the link in the description or clicking the link that pops up in chat. 2 awesome things will happen when you sign up via that link. 1, you're going to get up to $500 in Owner's Bucks as a deposit match when you sign up. If you put in $500, you will have the opportunity to unlock $500. I only have 150 of my 500 left. I went the full bore, but you'll get 100% match from Owner's Box on your first deposit. It's got to be at least $10. You're also, from us, going to get our NFL Sims Max package. That's going to cover you with our brand new NFL Sims tool. We're simulating the slates. We're simulating lineups against each other. We're getting expected ROI for players, stacks, lineups. You could use it for Owner's Box, DraftKings, FanDuel, showdown slates for DraftKings and FanDuel as well. So you could hit it for tonight's primetime game, big one, Cowboys-Niners. The contest is now 9,900 people. $25K to first, $125K guaranteed. Probably going to come pretty close to a little bit of reduced rate, but I think they're going to fill this one. It's a different message than I was giving you guys for the previous few weeks. But I think it's going to be one of the better contests that you can get into because I think it's going to be pretty soft, and that's an appealing stance for you. But we might still see a little bit of reduced rate. Either way, the 125K kickoff, I'm already in the contest. You should join me for it as well. Click the link in the description. Sign up at Owner's Box. Alrighty. We've gotten through running back. We've gotten through wide receiver. We got to hit tight end. I've already mentioned him on this show. Sam Laporta, 5K, the clear cash tight end right out of the gate. As much as I love my man Travis Kelce, doing one for all the guys out there, getting with Taylor Swift. It's good stuff. It's fun to see. But that doesn't get me any bonus points in a DFS lineup. So Sam Laporta is the guy you're looking for at 5K with no Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's just too cost effective. The points per dollar on someone like Laporta, very difficult to ignore. Go that direction in a cash game. Certainly go that direction in GPPs. I am very happy to get to Sam Laporta. I also don't mind getting to a $3,500 Zach Ertz. I think that salary spot looks pretty good. You've got this Cincinnati-Arizona game where I'm loading up a lot on Cincinnati. If that game can even potentially stay close, I think I like the idea of Ertz being the guy that's going to get any sort of touchdown catches. Those guys are my priorities. Obviously paying up for a Travis Kelce, a Hawkinson, even a Mark Andrews. I don't mind getting to those areas. I'm not really, other than Kelce. I'm just going to listen to the This Is Taylor Swift podcast, or not podcast, playlist on Spotify all day, getting me ready for that Travis Kelce 12%. That's what he's in my lineups right now. I feel like I should go with some sort of like Taylor Swift amount of ownership, but 89% sounds like it's way too much. So maybe 22. Should I get 22%? Would that be good? No, I don't know why I'm talking about Taylor Swift on this show like anybody has any idea. Wrong audience for Taylor Swift talk. Couple minutes before we go. So like I said, it's Laporta, it's Ertz, it's Travis Kelce. For the defenses, the chalk play for today is going to be the Tennessee Titans against the Colts. I have no disagreements there. 2,400 for the Titans. That's a preposterous price, first and foremost. I don't know what we're doing there. They're an average defense against the Colts today, but yet they're 2,400. They are the cash game defense that you're looking for. I think the Dolphins certainly look a little interesting against the Giants. That has not been the best offense in the world. Patriots D as well at 3,100. If we look at quarterbacks, closing that out quarterback style, lots of ownership to Mahomes and Hurts. If you can get there and in cash games, that's certainly where you want to go. You don't want to take on any risk. You just want the fantasy points from the quarterback position. GPPs are going to be a little bit different. I've already told you that I want a bunch of Reynolds and Raymond and Laporta. Why is Jared Goff not any more popular? I don't get it. I love Jared Goff today in GPPs at very minimal ownership. I love Joe Burrow with a little bit of ownership, but again, I love Chase. I love Boyd. Why aren't we getting to more Cincinnati quarterbacks? I'm expecting big things from Detroit and Cincinnati. I want the quarterbacks at relatively limited ownership in comparison to the Mahomes and Hurts of the world for today. Not that they're not good. And then, do I say this out loud? It's not going to be fun. This is going to be a way that I'm going to leave this show. I don't feel like I should say this, but I'm actually getting to Josh Dobbs. Don't hate me. Don't yell at me in chat. I'm getting to some Josh Dobbs as the opposite way to get to Cincinnati. So I can get to Dobbs. Maybe I get to Marquise Brown. Maybe I get to Zach Ertz. I get all of that sea of Cincinnati on the opposite side. Your Mixons, Chase, Boyds, Irv Smith, maybe. So I'm getting a little bit of Josh Dobbs at 5,200 in larger field contests. Your mileage may vary. He's probably the best pay down option you can get to at quarterback for today. 954, 1,100 people, 200 likes. I'm loving this, folks. How do we make it through this show so quickly? I barely even got a chance to tell you guys to sign up for Bet365. That link is in the description. I know Loughy's going to touch on it because if you are in Iowa or some other select states, you're going to get basically the best deal you can find if you're looking to get into sports betting. I wish I had more to talk about, guys, but I hit everything that I could hit in 25 minutes. You guys are lucky. You don't have to go anywhere. You can stay right on this stream. NFL Deeper Dive is coming up next. You get Loughy, Ben, Chris Spags. They are going to go through every single game on today's slate in detail, hour and 45 minutes. They're going to take you all the way up to like the 11:45 range. Then we're going to bounce on out of here to another show. We don't stop there either. NFL Live Before Lock. You're getting Eric and Matt Gajewski taking you all the way up to 1 p.m. We don't stop there either. Tonight, Cowboys, Niners, NFL Showdown Live Before Lock. Emac and Neil, they will kick it off at 7:15. I want to check this one DM from Loughy, make sure I didn't mess anything up. Okay, he just ruined something else that I'll have to fix. Guys, that's all I've got. We're moving it on to the NFL Deeper Dive crew. Thank you for joining me. Stay on this stream. We're coming up quickly. NFL Deeper Dive, Loughy, Ben, Spags. I'm out of here. Good luck. Shout out to Owner's Box. Go Liverpool. Cheers.
Yo, we're back in business. It's that time of week again. Time to induct you fine people into the Stochastic Hall of Fame and give away a bunch of free memberships as well. Remember, or for the first time if you're hearing it now, all you got to do to get involved, download the Stochastic profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins to us at Stochastic HOF when you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and win a free month of any Stochastic package of your choosing. Up to a $200 value, you got it for the entirety of the month, and you get inducted into the Hall of Fame. Right here, we do the bragging for you, and we kick this one off with Rob. Got into a Millie chop last night. Thanks for all the hard work everyone puts into the tools and the Sims. Sims, baby, coming through for Rob. $17,000 on a Thursday night slate, followed up by Germ. Good morning. Good morning. Shout out to the tools over at Stochastic. Chop the play action top spot. Thanks to the Bears waking up. Yeah, they woke up in a big way, dude. And Germ took home 21, almost 2,200 on that play action chop Thursday night. John Bryan, another win for the books. Thank you to the tools and what you guys do over there. Can't express how happy I am. Love it. Love hearing that, man. First place, $1,000. First place, $300. First place, $100. That is awesome. 3 entry max, solo shot, and a 20 entry. Smart stuff there, dude. And then you've got Drew _ Buck Nation. Quarter jukebox turning what? A few quarters into $88 and $1 into $300. Good stuff. I love seeing that ROI. It's a beautiful thing. And Corey, man, a few words. Stochastic at Loughy, at all of us. $1,000 and $375. Finishing 3rd and 4th in the Rainmakers football September tier climber. Congrats to you, Corey. And Kenny, $600. First place in the mini max on a heater. Shout out to Matt Gajewski. Yes, the CFB god. And Stochastic, best in the business. Cleandre Hood. Shout out to the whole crew at Stochastic for getting me right with the Sims projections. Another one. Love all the great content. Been rocking out with y'all since the COVID season. Watch football all the time. Keep all the great projections coming. Pause. That's not a pause moment, dude. Come on. That's not a pause moment. But congratulations. First place in the Daily Dollar single entry. Ben P., we've seen him here before. Took first last night thanks to the GOAT, Matt _ Gajewski. Told you. First place for Ben P. Another one. And then X Night. Man, what a game between Kansas City and New York. We're a little late on this one, but we got you, man. But thanks to Stochastic crew for all the tools and insights that made this showdown awesome. 31 in the 315. And Stez, does this qualify? Shout out to everyone over at Stochastic. Stop guessing. Start winning. Quarter jukebox. Again, guys, it doesn't matter what the entry size is. Top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. And you're not chopping with a ton of people. You're getting the free month. And you're getting up here. Entirely free. And we wrap it up with Hendricks. Turn 25 cents into this thanks to Stochastic while rocking the Stochastic avatar. Congrats to all of you guys. Remember, stochastic.com/avatar. Download it. Use it wherever it is you play. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, no matter the entry fee. And tweet us at Stochastic HOF. Get that free month, any package of your choice. We'll see you back here next week with another edition of the Stochastic Hall of Fame. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Stochastic.com NFL Deeper Dive. The greatest time of the, well, really the greatest time of the week is 3 hours from now. But we're going to set you up to hopefully make that greatest time of the week even greater. Hopefully we win some money and we can help you out along the way. Dave Loughran at Loughy_D on the Twitters. LOUGHY_D in case you were wondering. And we've got a 10-game slate today. That's the wheelhouse, man. The 10 games, in my opinion, you can't beat it. You got a London game right now. You got 4 teams on bye, and then you got 10 games. We can settle in. And if you haven't looked at the afternoon slate yet, this is the craziest afternoon slate you're going to get. Definitely that we've had all season long. and we've got podcast exclusive content out there. Do not forget, Greg and I, every Friday afternoon slate. If you're having a rough week around 1:30, 2 o'clock, hop over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it may be. Check it out. It's less than 30 minutes. We'll get you in and out set for this afternoon's 4-game slate with a lot of crazy high totals in that one. But first, let's break down the main slate before we do anything else. Let me introduce some fine fellas that are hanging with me today. First, sitting on the, I don't actually know where he's sitting because this isn't going to look right on the screen. Chris Spags, at Chris Spags on Twitter, back with us for the second straight week. What's up, brother?
I'm glad to be back here once again. It's a big slate, though. Honestly, just 10 games today, but a lot of things to exploit. And the chalkiest running backs we might find all year today with a lot of obvious reasons to go there. So I'm excited to be here. And I'm actually curious, Loughy, what was I sitting on? Was I sitting on your lap? Was I sitting on, I don't know. Like, I didn't know where you're going with that one. I was curious. I thought it was going to be a bed intro.
I meant I was still in a solo shot, so I couldn't be like sitting next to me or sitting above me, which you're right. Sitting above me could have come off strange. So I'm glad we just left that as it was. No, I couldn't see where like down. So the way we are in this call, like on Zoom, doesn't actually frame the same way that we are. You've been around long enough, Spags. You knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, we're in the Hollywood Squares setup on the Zoom, and then we're in the real thing. Jordan makes it look like a real show, and we're professionals. And I'm sitting on something. We'll find out what I'm sitting on by the end of the stream.
Yeah, it depends on whether you're higher. You got the fucking football in your hands again. That's going to be a whole season thing, huh?
It's right here, and it's like a nice prop. And the chat's already like, Spags going to have a football in his hand, so am I going to let him down?
I love it. And by the way, Ben Rasa at Jazzraz DFS, jack of all trades, master of many. That's what they call him. I just go along with it. Dude, this fall weather up in the Northeast, boy, pretty nice, huh? I love it.
It's real nice. It's cold, feels like football. I know you tweeted that. It's good. It's good stuff. It sets the tone for a very interesting 10-game slate.
It does. It feels, Spags, it actually, I know you've only been on the Northeast for a little while now, but
2 years, unfortunately, but yeah.
Is it 2 years now?
Yeah, coming up on November.
You say
count the days like on a prison wall, scratching.
Oh, shut up, man. Don't do that. Come on. It's not that bad up here. Listen, the best thing is that like it gets cold. Sometimes it gets too hot, but you don't have to worry about mudslides and fires and earthquakes and tornadoes and hurricanes. You know what I mean? That's the luxury we have of living up here. Get some bad weather from time to time, but usually nothing apocalyptic.
Well, you have to worry about, for me, my child being in daycare and them teaching him go birds as though we want to be Eagles fans just because we're in the area. So that's what I worry about day to day. That's awesome. They have him wear Eagles green in, or we got to have some Phillies red for daycare? Well, the wife makes him wear Eagles green and Phillies red sometimes, but he's a Colts fan. I've taught him go Colts. He thinks that Anthony Richardson's Bluey. We're crushing it. Rick Welsh said the excuses for Northeast always coming. Ask Ben. Ben loves it. Ben loves it here. He wouldn't go to a warm climate.
No, I wish it was a little cloudier, a little colder. But honestly, we'll do what we can do. Soon enough, it'll be ideal temperatures.
You do well in Seattle.
Yeah, but I don't want to go out there. But yeah, I would in theory.
What were you gonna say? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's
go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I don't do Pacific time zone. I can't be watching football. Yeah. You see that? It's so much better for set lineups, man. Like it's a million times better. No. Can't be doing that.
Anyway, happy to have you guys.
9 a.m.
Whether you love the Northeast or you hate it, no matter to me. We all love football. That's why we're here. How about that for a segue? And I can ask of only one thing. You know, a real professional mentions his segue, Spags. Good. Pats himself on the back the moment it happens. Well, I'll tell you, how are they going to know you did good work if you don't? That's true. We're happy to have you guys here as always. If you could, take a single second, hit that thumbs up, atone for your sins here on a Sunday morning, bow down before the YouTube overlords. It's the only thing that keeps us alive on these shows, helps us keep the lights on. We appreciate it greatly. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, you love this content, or maybe you even halfway appreciate it, and you're on the fence, hit that subscribe. If it turns out down the road you hate it, you can unsubscribe and never hear from us again. But in the meantime, hit that subscribe button and help us on that march to 100K. All right, let's make it happen, fellas. Only 10 games today. So it's a little bit different than usual, Spags. We've had like 12, 13 games every day of the week or season so far without any bye weeks. Last week we had the London game, but no bye week. So with 10 games, you would think that this wouldn't be as loaded a slate as it is. but you could make an argument for, I mean, you could close your eyes at running back and wide receiver and just click in those mid and upper ranges and land on any of the 5 players you would at 2 running back, 3 receiver, and probably go, hey, that doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, there's definitely players at every position you could get to. There's cheap players too. The Khalif Raymond of it all, the Wan'Dale Robinson of it all. How much will people play those 2 guys together to get these expensive guys they want to get to? The running back configurations, I think, looking pretty chalky, but also the data, the things that we look at statistically, as well as the projections, all of that aligns for guys like Devon Achane, whose name keeps changing by the week in terms of how I'm trying to pronounce it, and also David Montgomery in particular. Those 2 mixing going to be popular. So things you can exploit, things you can lean on, and I'm curious to see how you guys are going to handle it.
Me too. I also made the executive decision on Wednesday, and Neil took exception to this, that I'm just going to call him Devon Achane. He missed the boat.
Rude.
I think it's an unreasonable ask from him.
But you okay, so Lafayette, I presume you weren't in the weeds in February, March, and all that, sussing out the rookie running backs. So you've really if you've been playing best ball, whatever, you knew his name since, let's say, April, May, somewhere around there. That's not long enough to go you can't change your name, man. You just didn't know. You didn't get to have the conversation with him.
Okay. From now on, I want you to call me Loughy.
Lafayette.
Yeah. Okay. And just this whole time, I was afraid to tell you what my name was. No, I'll come around in due time, but I think this is a personal process for me. It's 2023, right? Isn't this how we do this? There's a personal
Safe
process
space for Loughy here. Yeah. All you've ever wanted.
And I'll work through this on my own time. Ben, what are your first thoughts on this slate? We're going to go game by game here, as we always do. Just initial thoughts on a slate where you actually have some high totals in games that have some teams that have really 45 between Arizona and Cincinnati is no joke. LA and Philly with Cooper Kupp back. Obviously Miami and New York, Saquon Barkley doubtful. That whole offensive line is banged up. And I'm just scratching the surface here.
Yeah, so it's a couple of different things that I think are unique. One, there's a handful of, big time playmakers that are working back into the slate. Will they factor in? I think that's something we're going to discuss. And then on the other side, Spags already alluded to this. You have real pay down options at a lot of these positions. So this is a week where I'm hopeful, because I feel like this is my better type of weeks, where I think the lineups kind of build themselves, and there's a game theory aspect, because you have obvious pay down options, you have obvious chalk running backs, you have some really high totals, and they work really nicely together. So you could build a pretty effective lineup pretty quickly, and I think that could be exploited.
Obi-Wan said it's velour season. Yeah. Remember those? All right. So what years were you guys in high school? For me, I graduated 2005.
I graduated 2002.
07.
02? Yeah. Okay. So you remember those velour outfits the ladies would wear?
No, the juicy pants, the juicy
Bring
couture.
them back, Spags.
They're cozy, but the women now there's this higher, the athleisure line has been created, I think, because of that. Women just want to be cozy, and I respect that. I respect that, right?
I was a huge fan. Back in the day. Bring me back, baby. All right, we'll hit a super chat, then we'll talk New York Giants and Miami. Huge beats with a $20 super chat. Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Good morning, blasphemers. Coming up with some new names. I'm ready to atone for my sins. Just had some. Wait, hold on. I just have some more sinning to do before lock. Good luck today. Yeah, man. We all do. That's why we're here. That's why we're here to help you. Appreciate the super chat though, man. Really do. New York Giants, Miami Dolphins. All right, Ben, let me go to you first. So we got limited practices basically all week from Saquon, but I thought he was in line to play, but apparently not. So you have no well, we're not expected to have Saquon Barkley in this game. 47.5 point total. Miami, no surprise, one of the highest totals on this, probably the highest. Last I looked, it was sitting at 30.5. We'll start with the Giants, though. Coming off a dreadful game against the Seahawks on Monday night. Even on red zone trips, it was disgusting. What was it, like a 100-yard touchdown return? Wan'Dale Robinson, though, you saw him run only 9 routes and get targeted on 5 of them in week 3 in his return to action after a pretty long hiatus. And then he goes and has the highest target share, albeit only 18%, but still the highest target share on the team in week 4, and was out there for what, like 65% of snaps or something like that. He's the minimum salary on DraftKings today.
And that's what I'm saying. Like those are pretty unique situations. He's a very obvious pay down option. Do you have to play him? Of course not. But if you're looking for a cheap wide receiver, he's going to make a lot of sense. They should be throwing. They're massive underdogs. It's ticked to 13. I'm on OddsShopper right now in some spots. So I get it. I mean, right off the bat, even though the Giants have serious issues, there are some playable Giants, in my opinion. And without Saquon, feels even more likely that guys like Wan'Dale will get opportunities.
Are you heavy on, because we know he's going to get some ownership, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Like he's going to be pretty popular. This offensive line, Seattle literally came into last week with 5 sacks, and they were like in the bottom. Now they're tied for first in sacks after one game with 16 on the year. But if you were to just if you were to talk about this offense, Wan'Dale Robinson is the guy from an ownership perspective. But what about are you prioritizing him over the other guys? Are you getting the Darren Waller on a day where you know that Laporta and Kelsey are going to be popular? How do you approach this offense that's likely going to be playing from behind?
Yeah, so for me, I think there's 2 separate categories. You've got Wan'Dale, who makes sense. He fits all different types of lineups. If you're looking for a cheapie, he's a great target. He's going to be popular. And then you've got everybody else. So I do have some Waller, but that's because I have some Daniel Jones. And I think that if you're going for it, you might as well go for it with a +2, because I don't see any way Miami doesn't put up points. So for me, the only Giant that I'm actually comfortable with, I think, mirrors the field. And that's just because of the price point. Everybody else, I think, is large field tournament or pass.
Okay. What about you, Spags?
I mean, I'm with the Wan'Dale thing. I think it's sort of tough because if you are playing, let's say, David Montgomery, Devon Achane, Joe Mixon, Travis Kelsey, Jamar Chase, some combination of those guys with Wan'Dale Robinson, you are probably with a large portion of the field. And I think that's something you have to be really mindful of. If you're playing Wan'Dale, same thing with Khalif Raymond, but certainly makes sense. Like Ben mentioned, it's just a nice price point being min salary. The involvement he's had so far, all of that looks good. I don't love the Giants overall, though. Like the total still only 17.5. Daniel Jones getting pressured on 43% of dropbacks. The Dolphins also getting pressure, 26% of pressures on their plays. So that's something where obviously you expect that to be somewhere in the middle, but that's a lot. Then we're talking about a third of the time that Daniel Jones is being pressured, and he's absolutely falling apart with a negative 1.2 EPA on pressure plays. So I don't think the Giants get there. I think Wan'Dale can still get there even if they don't. But does it feel smart to play a guy who might be 20 to 30% owned, who might have a ceiling of 15 points? I'm not so sure about that. So I mean, mindful of the Wan'Dale exposure seems like a theme of the day.
That's kind of the question, right? Like if he is just super popular because of that price point, it's still this Giants offense that can't protect their quarterback. Like it's still an offense that's spread out where you're talking like 5-6 targets for 3 or 4 guys in the offense. So I'm with you there. So here's my question though, on the other side. And I was happy to see Josh spend a bunch of time on this on the first look, 30 minutes that he takes before us. The Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert spot is one where I'm like, if Spags, if ownership really is this far separated between these two guys. Now I understand that Raheem Mostert lost a fumbled twice last week, but as far as touch counts go, he had 1 fewer touch than Devon Achane. He had the same amount they both had 5 targets, and it was 8 to 7 in carries. Now, is it possible? Like, could I just be completely wrong here? And Devon Achane is now the bell cow back in Miami. That is 100% possible. But he's also projected for 24% ownership. Raheem Mostert, this is DraftKings specifically, on Owner's Box, Mostert's getting no ownership whatsoever because he's like $400 more expensive than Achane, and I get that. But we have Mostert coming in at like 3% today. Maybe you can tell me otherwise. I'm just not convinced right now that this is not still going to be a relatively split backfield in week 5.
Yeah, I think you're logical and completely with that. And I think the game theory of it, if you've been doing DFS for years, like a guy like Loughy has seen many slates that look similar to this one, just play the other running back who's got a similar workload, and that tends to work out pretty well. That said, I do think last week there was a little bit of a flippening where the roles shifting around, which is something that I think, best ball people look for that a lot more. But in general, over the course of a season, you do expect the chaos to kind of come through. The rookie players who looked good, who have an opportunity to outperform, they start to earn a role. And Achane on the year is now up to 4.3 red zone touches per game, 1 inside the 5-yard line per game. Mostert on the year 3. And that includes obviously the game start or the first 2 games where Achane wasn't even getting work. So I think there is a change here that justifies Achane's ownership. but just the DFS game theory of it is that you go to Mostert. But Achane's been lights out. Like all the numbers I look at, he's got a 49% intended touch rate. He's got a 0.61 EPA per rush, which is like impossible. EPA per rush is supposed to be closer to 0 just because those plays aren't high octane usually. But he's crushing that 30% avoided tackle rate, 63% avoided tackle rate, and he's getting a target. Like he's doing everything you can ask, but obviously we all know regression is coming for everybody at some point, and Achane's probably more due for it than anybody.
Yeah, the fact that he's averaging over 10 yards before contact per attempt.
Hard to keep that up.
Yeah. By the way, Ben, our data team just DM me, said to refresh ownership. So actually now we have Devon Achane at 19.1% and Mostert at 8.5%. That to me seems a lot more reasonable looking at a slate like this.
Yeah, and that's something I think that is definitely going to factor in, because when you roll the dice, talking to the game theory element, you want as much, potential payoff as you can get, because you're not saying most likely that you think straight up, if everything was equal, I would play Mostert over HN. What You're saying is that, okay, 1/5, 1/6, 1/7 of the time, does he flip it? And if he does, do I get paid off exponentially more potentially? That is really what you're always balancing. So you really want to see that discrepancy you mentioned on owner's box because of the price point. I think it's even more leveraged over there. And I'm willing to embrace that, but I'm with you. I mean, it's the type of spot I look for. It's not to say, the guy he's so explosive in HM, but nobody can keep this up. It's just impossible with these type of touches. So I think you can really make a case for either. These are the type of players I think you need to look at your lineup as a whole and make a decision. If you've already leveraged, you have a really unique stack or something, you don't need to make a hero call with Mostert. But if you've played Montgomery and Wandale and some of these other very obvious spots, sliding in Achane is maybe not the best move in those type of lineups.
Thoughts on both of you from both of you guys here. Look, there's certain spots that we're going to spend less time on. Obviously, this is one I think that deserves plenty of our attention. Ben and then Spags. Throw it right over to Spags. You don't need me jumping in after this, but so if the slate started right now, are you with the field on Achane and Mostert? Are you overweight on Mostert, under on Achane, overweight on both, underweight on both of them, willing to play both of them in the same lineup? Like, I really want to break this one down on how we're targeting this backfield, because they have a total that's north of 30 points right now against the Giants.
Very simple for me. I'm over on Mostert and I'm under on Achane.
Okay.
And I wouldn't play them together.
Okay. Perfect. I like how concise you are sometimes. Yeah. That was solid.
Do what I can.
What about you, Spags?
Yeah, I'm going to be over on Achane, and I think tried to get with the field on Mostert, though him being closer to 10% ownership does mean some things are going to have to move around for me there. But I think over on Achane and also over on Tyreek, or actually no, with the field on Tyreek, he's projected for about 22.3%, the most recent ownership. I'm going to be right there. But I think Achane's better than people realize, and I think the regression is going to come. But if he regresses to like 0.4 EPA per rush, he'd still be the best running back analytically in football, and I think that's within the range of outcomes.
Calling him the best running back in football?
Analytically. It's just a
caveat. Yeah, nice save. The issue I have with, like, a lot of people I've seen it in chat already talking about like playing both of them together. I just still think there's some recency bias going on with that Broncos game. And the issue I have isn't that they both can't do it, but if you're doing so, they still cannibalize each other. And if you look at the running back pool today in similar price range, like go up 500 and down 500, on those guys, there's so many good running back plays, and many of them with bell cow status.
Yeah, I don't think 70 points is happening again. I think the coaching community did kind of browbeat Mike McDaniel over that. And that was also a game where the Broncos did fire the Dolphins defensive coordinator with some acrimony. So I don't think they put up 70 here, even if they can, but it is the Dolphins. It's in the range of outcomes, I suppose. But I agree, like playing two running backs for the same team feels a little bit of a fish move, would be my guess. And of course, that's going to win today now that I fucking said it's a fish move.
Yeah. Clip that, Jordan. What are you doing with the pass catchers, Ben?
Yeah, so I think most people, rightfully so, are trying to decide either or both in this backfield. Let's not forget about Tyreek Hill, Waddle, Tua. I mean, these are ridiculous options, and not that it really paid off for me at all. I was able to survive. I think most of us on the show were on a pretty aggressive fade of the Dolphins pass catchers. Tyreek, I rolled the dice and was able to get away from that. in the Buffalo game. I'm not willing to do that here. I'm actually trying to get him in my lineups. I think he's in a good spot. You've got Jefferson, you've got other pay up options. And most likely, if you've decided to go to one of those guys in the backfield, I don't think your next click in and your lineup is really building towards Tyreek unless you're using Tua in a full stack. So I'm very comfortable with the pass catchers and with the Dolphins. I'm not getting a lot of Tua, but as a one-off, give me one of these pass catchers for Miami.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I mean, Tyreek Hill, he could go 202 any given week, Spags.
Yeah, I think, and also to mention the owner's box of it all, Tua coming up a lot for me in owner's box, QB +1, highest exposed QB there, QB +2 stacks, highest exposed QB on those as well. So I think the owner's box play, if it were to super flex, you get in 2 QBs. I think Tua probably looks a little better than he does on DraftKings.
Favorite plays from this game, Spags, and then Ben, and favorite way to play it.
For me, it would be Achane, Tyreek. I also have a vague interest in Matt Breida just because it is a pretty good matchup going against Miami's run defense, one of the worst run defenses so far in the league. They also struggle against running back targets. So in some ways, that's kind of a vessel against Wan'Dale Robinson if Breida does get some checkdowns. So I'm going to try to force my way to about 5% Breida. But I think the Dolphins stack is it. The Giants struggle against motion too. That's where the Dolphins had their biggest advantage against the Broncos a couple weeks ago. To me, it's just like play whatever Miami guys you want and mix in some Waddle too, because he's kind of the lever against, I think both parts of the lineups are going to be chalky.
Yeah, the Giants love the blitz, Ben, but Tua has been like the best quarterback in the league getting the ball out quick this year, and he just has speed all over the field. So could be a long day in the passing game.
Well, definitely could be a long day. It's a perfect time. I'm going to take this super chat because great etiquette from Teddy, and it's his birthday. So happy birthday, my friend. He said, is it dumb to play Miami with Tua, Hill, and Waddle and none of a run back? I think that's fine just because we've seen Miami can win 48-3, 45-10. Like they can put up a ton of points without the Giants doing anything. I do think the majority of people are overrating how big of a situation this is in general. Like I know it seems like the Giants couldn't possibly cover or couldn't possibly win, but they can because it's football and there's a wide range of outcomes in these games. But I'm very comfortable with full onslaughts for Miami.
What's their implied winning percentage today?
Yeah, it's like if you asked, I think most people is out like 1%. They win the game, what? 1 out of 7, 1 out of 6, something like that.
Funny how that works when you actually look at it.
Because it feels impossible. It feels like there's legitimately no scenario where they could win.
Yep.
Yeah, one thing real fast to highlight before we move on. So, and this is just complete conspiracy theory. Brian Daboll, Giants coach, Brian Daboll, Bills pedigree, front office, Bills pedigree, maybe some intel sharing there because I don't think that was a non-amicable split. So if you want to talk yourself into the Giants, that is that. They share a lot of commonalities with the Bills, and the Bills just absolutely destroyed Dolphins in an embarrassing way.
Okay. All right.
That way, I've covered all sides now. So all the touts speak. Left face, right face, we're all good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No stone unturned. And by no stone unturned, we mean no player not named the good one. All right. And yeah, with Teddy, we saw it last week, Ben, when we did the podcast exclusive on Tuesday. On when we did the single entry and 3 max podcast exclusive, we looked at the one lineup. I think it was the spy, the 100K to first, and it was Josh Allen with Diggs and Kincaid with no run back at all. The only difference there is that Kincaid didn't do anything and he was just salary relief.
Can I just jump in real quick because I can't read? Teddy's question wasn't without a run back. It was without running backs.
Oh, yes. Of course.
My answer wouldn't change, though. I'm completely comfortable with that as well.
Run backs or running backs. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Carolina and Detroit. All right. So, 9.5 point spread here, Spags. Miles Sanders continues to disappoint. No surprise. Maybe you like him today. It's possible. Oh, he's involved as a pass catcher. That's good. You'll get your 5 for 21. But I'm done. I won't keep harping because eventually this is going to backfire on me. But it is nice vindication after he burned me so often as I played him behind a great offensive line in Philly. You could say he was banged up last week dealing with that groin. I understand it. Chuba Hubbard out-touched him or out-snapped him. Assuming he's 100% good to go. He's not questionable or anything for this game. But they're big dogs. Of course, we'll talk about Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown being doubtful on the other side. But let's start it off with Carolina. Adam Thielen, Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders. Bryce Young has definitely struggled to start his career. Do you like anything from the Panthers today?
You could talk me in a little bit of Thielen, but besides that, not a lot to love here. I could see the kind of game theory logic in Sanders. He's much cheaper. He's still getting just shy of 20 intended touches a game. And a lot of that's coming in the pass game too. So for DraftKings, could rack up some easy PPR points that I think makes some sense, but I just hate Carolina. I think this offense with Bryce Young is probably my least favorite one in the NFL. Pittsburgh, with how they've been playing, might be close, but Bryce just doesn't look ready for prime time. He's not able to stand in the pocket, deliver the throws that he needs to hit. The receivers aren't very good. They apparently want to trade for a wide receiver one, as though they didn't have DJ Moore, and everybody's made that joke, but it's just a bad team right now, besides Thielen, who is having the rejuvenation of a lifetime playing out of the slot for the most part. So you could justify getting there a little bit, but his price tags come up. I don't think you need anything from the Carolina side.
I don't really have many disagreements there, Ben. I love when we disagree on this show. It makes it better. But this is kind of one of those spots where if you wanted to play Sanders, yeah, sure. I get it. He's just been wildly inefficient this year, like terribly inefficient.
Yeah, I mean, if he had 60 carries last week, he wouldn't have gotten the 100-yard bonus at 1.5 yards per carry. That's not going to get it done. He does have an out, though, in games. You know, they're a very big underdog here. There's 8 target equity. And when you have that, that can always bail you out, even if you're not efficient, even if your touchdown equity is low. But it's still tough. It's the type of thing, again, I think if you have a bunch of lineups and you're looking for leverage, you want to be different, I think Sanders makes some sense, but you have to realize that you might have to get the one touchdown that Carolina scores today, and that's a very tough ask.
Yeah, it certainly is. Yeah. You need a lot of things to go right. But you know what, man? On the other side, I get that the chalk, eating the chalk can feel gross at times. But after that last game by Montgomery, ties a career high with 32 carries, I don't know if you guys looked at his goal line work and his red zone carries in that game. It was like 12 red zone carries, 8 inside the 10, 5 inside the 5, just dominant usage. And not just dominant usage in between the 20s. Like, you get inside the 20 and David Montgomery's touching the ball a shit ton. Now Jahmyr Gibbs, we don't anticipate him playing. They don't. He's listed as doubtful. And if he's out, understandably, David Montgomery is going to be very popular, but they're almost double-digit favorites. Clearly let me put it to you this way. David Montgomery, Ben, would have had some ownership even if Jahmyr Gibbs was in. So now it's just without Amon-Ra St. Brown, presumably, Montgomery, Laporta, Khalif Raymond, who runs 50% of his plays out of the slot as well. From top to bottom, this team's going to be chalky, but it's hard not to be interested in them.
Yeah, I mean, again, the tools and the projections and everything, they're chalky for a reason. He's in a great spot, and now Gibbs is, seemingly not going to play, and that consolidates it further. But, there's still a lot of variance around these type of players, especially a guy like Montgomery, because, he has to score. I think to really get there, he probably has to score twice. Which, against this spot, it isn't the craziest thing to ask, but he's not someone where if for some reason they're trailing or target share is not good, maybe he picks some of that up with no Gibbs, but I get it. I mean, I'm playing him. I just think once again, though, it's always that balance of how often does he not get there? And if I roll the dice, what is the payoff? What does it look like? How can I exploit it? What other Lions might get there causing him not to get there? I think that's the other part. If Laporta has a huge game or something like that, how much more likely is Montgomery to not get there?
Spags, one of the most interesting teams on the entire slate. It's the Detroit Lions, assuming that Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs do officially get ruled out.
Yeah, I think it's a spot where I don't know how you fade David Montgomery here. The Sims pushing me to almost double the field. Obviously running that before the show without the ownership projection, so that could change a little bit. But still, I think to me that Montgomery is at least a 40 to 50% play because it's football. If it were the NBA, I think he'd be like 100% play. You just put in and assume the usage is going to be either the workload's going to be there. He's basically, like Loughy mentioned, he's basically at Tony Pollard level red zone usage, which is insane and been so much. But he's at 6.3 red zone intended touches per game, 2 inside the 5-yard line per game. Obviously, last game is going to skew it quite a bit because, as Loughy mentioned, hit some crazy highs on that one in terms of the usage. usage, but without Gibbs out there, like Montgomery's actually been a pretty good pass catcher this year at a 0.68 EPA. Last year, he was pretty good in Chicago catching passes too. So you're adding more to his profile. He's honestly got like 40 touch potential if this game is in hand, because they just don't seem to not want to give him the ball over and over again. So play Craig Reynolds if you want to be a hero, I guess, but I just don't know how Montgomery doesn't get there and doesn't at least be a viable part of a potential winning lineup, if not an actual part of a winning lineup.
What about the passing game, though? Laporta already looks nothing like a rookie. I mean, this guy's been awesome to start the season. I'm a fan. We're all fans, I think. But it's not just Laporta for me, Spags. I think Khalif Raymond, and understandably, he's getting some ownership. But, look, if you wanted to go ahead and play less Khalif Raymond because he's getting owned, I get it. But at the same time, Khalif Raymond, we have at like 13%. We have Wan'Dale Robinson at 13%. They're almost identical ownership. There are some cheap wide receivers out there that are going to be popular today. And where does Khalif Raymond rank for you? Where are these guys ranking at their positions today if Amon-Ra St. Brown is out? Because you got to throw to somebody, and they do still have a few decent weapons. I didn't even mention Josh Reynolds at 11% himself.
Yeah, Khalif Raymond, I do think looks pretty good. He also looks good on Owner's Box. Like, I think he fits every site out there. The price tags for him look incredible. On Owner's Box, the sim I ran right before the show, 71% exposure there. Obviously, you can dial that back a little bit. The sim is definitely saying he's a good play with one of the highest ROIs on the slate there. Same thing for DraftKings as well. Khalif Raymond, I think the case you can make against him is that he just isn't getting a lot of volume historically. There's so much opening up. You do have Jameson Williams entering the picture too. Josh Reynolds has been more of a safety blanket. So I think Josh Reynolds is more of an interesting tournament play in some respects, but you just can't argue a $3,300 price tag, a pivot point to a potentially chalkier Wan'Dale Robinson. I'm with Loughy that I think Laporta is probably my favorite play just because he's not a little bit off the beaten path. He's not Travis Kelce, which is an important part of the tight end slate this week. But Khalif Raymond just looks so good in terms of the projection, in terms of the opportunity that if he's going to be 13% owned, I think I'll have double that and feel pretty okay about it.
I don't know how okay I'll feel about it, but it does feel like the right move. And I don't know, Ben, like if you're prioritizing Detroit players today, how is it going to be done?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see it in line. Laporta is a guy that I'm very comfortable with, but it's all in line with the field. Like Montgomery, I think I like the best, but not as much as the difference between how the field views him. They really like him, particularly on some of the sites like Owner's Box. He's one of, if not the highest owned guy projected. And that's going to make my decision a little tougher over there. So my biggest question is, do I want to get to Goff? And I'm not honestly sure. He grades out pretty well in the top stack tool. And if you go there and maybe you go, Goff and Reynolds and Laporta, that's kind of a different build within a team that I think does set up pretty well. So that's really where I'm struggling the most, not with the individual players, but do I want to stack the Lions?
All right. Last thing here. We talked about it. We've seen it win. Where are we at, boys, on a, say, like Montgomery Raymond lineup or a Montgomery Laporta lineup or a Montgomery Reynolds lineup without Jared Goff?
I think it looks good. It's a good secondary stack.
I think
we talked about that on our podcast exclusive, Loughy, for like 3-max and stuff, where you're seeing more and more of this because scoring is up in some of these teams with mobile quarterbacks elsewhere that box out the actual quarterback for a stack. Price wise, I think is the most important thing. Like when you talk about add those two guys' salary together, what are you getting? Like 10K?
That's a great point. Yeah. This isn't Hill and Waddle without Tua.
Exactly. It's $17,000. How are they going to get there without their quarterback?
Yeah. And Tua's expense. Yeah, you're right. So Spags, I think that is definitely one way to look at it. Like if you had Raymond and Montgomery, 4 for 60 and a touchdown from Raymond, 3 for 40 and a touchdown from Raymond might get you there. And Montgomery has a nice game. And the offense is kind of consolidated between a few players without Gibbs and St. Brown.
Yeah, I think that's the issue with Goff too, is he's not very mobile, so he's not going to give you any rushing upside. So I'm perfectly okay stacking up the Lions without him, because there's definitely worlds, like Loughy just mentioned, that exact stat line would not be enough for Goff to get there. So you're not actually cutting his parlay. He could easily get beaten by an under 5% owned Lamar. Like there's a lot of guys that could beat Goff. So I think if you're stacking Lions, like you don't have to feel pressured to force Goff in at 6,300. That's such a steep price tag for a guy that doesn't run.
Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Let's go, boys. All right. So Spags, I'll start this with you, and I'll be very honest out of the gate. Why would I not be, right? Not even sure why I'd mention that. Makes me sound dishonest. But Baltimore and Pittsburgh, this is really one of those games where I don't have anything that I hone in on as something I love. Maybe you could make the strong argument that Mark Andrews in a game like this, where Kelsey and Laporta are the guys that everyone's focusing on at tight end at the higher tier, is viable. And I think he's always viable, right? But this game from top to bottom is ugly. Even on the other side with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, Harris actually had a pretty efficient game on the ground last week. He averaged over 5 yards per attempt, but they got their dicks kicked in Houston. And then you had Jaylen Warren, who, despite the fact that these guys on the season have essentially ran the same amount of routes, Najee just doesn't really get targeted. So now you have like a de facto ground game guy in Najee, and then a guy that's getting most of the opportunities in the passing game out of the backfield in Jaylen Warren. And then in Pittsburgh, it was cool to see Gus Edwards kind of pull away from the pack last week with Justice Hill active, 15 carries, 3 targets. Hill and Gordon only saw 3 apiece. But I mean, how confident can we be in that offense with the amount of weapons that they have? Take the floor is yours on either side.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one because I do think the Sims, pushing me a little bit towards Pickens and Austin. I think that feels gross, but I could get the logic there. Pickens' usage has been pretty elite relative to obviously what Pickens has done with it. And this offense is really bad, but I do think that it just takes Pickens one play, really. We've seen that enough times in the preseason, in the regular season for him to get there. The most interesting play, though, in the game for me is going to be Lamar. And I think stacking him with Andrews, any single stack with him, he's just so under-owned. 1% ownership on Stochastic, or 1.6%, about 1.5% across the industry. Lamar at that low ownership, I think is always worth some flyers. That said, I did run it through the Sims, and it does seem like it's mostly negative ROI Lamar lineups, but I'm going to jam a few in just because he could put up 40 today, and that breaks the slate. And that's the one thing you needed with all the chalk plays. I think it's entirely in the range of outcomes. So I'll get more Pickens, I'll get more Austin, but I do think the best play in this game, just because the ownership is probably Lamar stacked with, I guess, anybody you really want.
What about you, Ben?
Oh yeah, I'm all about, me. Come on now. He has slate breaking upside. And honestly, this isn't even one of those where it's like Lamar's been awful, but I still know he can do it. He's been quietly very good. I just feel like every week there are 1 or 2 quarterbacks that put up, 50 or team scores 70, and just quietly Baltimore is just lurking. And listen, he's already achieved a 100-yard bonus once this year. Easy pairing with Andrews, and I rolled the dice. I built some of these teams. I have Pickens coming back. It could result in straight 0, but Spags already said this. It only takes 1 explosive upside. I love that stack as a big time tournament play.
Okay. Large field, anything, 3 max single entry, max entry.
So again, I think you can do it anywhere. You just want to be, if that's your stand and say single entry, you don't need to make hero call. You can, but Montgomery, Achane, those guys, that's fine. You've already made your stand, and it's with the Ravens. So you don't have to be as worried of like, okay, can I afford to have some of this chalk around my stack? You absolutely can.
Man, the NFL right now is like, it is the level of parity in some of these weeks. Like, Miami comes out and slaughters Denver, gets crushed by the Bills. The Bills are now down 11-0 and just consistently punting the ball midway through the second quarter. Crazy. Every single week there's something like this. Now they can obviously come back, but I don't know, Spags. It's weird. Jacksonville's staying in London for 2 weeks. Who wants
an advantage? Yeah, because like they're.
I think so. Yeah. It's certainly an advantage, but it's just weird seeing certain teams go nuclear one week and then completely fall apart the following week. See it all the time.
That's been what I think a lot of the data people have said. I know with Football Outsiders last year, Aaron Schatz was definitely saying a lot of the times that the NFL every year you should expect more and more parity because of the democratization of team building and some stuff and the analytics and all of the things that are kind of coming together where good teams will sometimes look bad one week and then the next week they'll look like a world beater. And the London part though is just such a tough haul. That's basically you're going back to 1950s NBA travel to have to do that in a week.
For sure. Yeah. No, look, and there's still plenty of game left, but boy, that's looking rough early on for Buffalo. Anyway, do you guys have anything else on either side of this? Are you targeting the backfields for either team? I think that's the toughest spot to get to. I'm with you on Lamar. I like Andrews today at 5-6% ownership. The backfields here are a tough ask for me.
Yeah, I don't see a whole lot for me.
Nothing for me. No.
Nothing. Okay. Let's keep it rolling then. Because next up, we got Houston and Atlanta. We Ben.
Yes.
What side are you on?
Oh, Atlanta.
Me
in
too.
the game?
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I think it's kind of a comeback down the earth moment for Houston, and seeing the excitement from the public. By the way, public betting actually hasn't done all that bad this year on the NFL, but like the public side of games. But there's a lot of hype still around this Houston team. And hey, don't get me wrong. I've been hyping up Stroud from the jump. Okay. I still think he's played really well, but this Atlanta team, and who knows, like we just talked about with parity, anything can happen. Atlanta can go down 3 scores early, and then everything I'm thinking right now, Ben, goes out the window. But Houston's run defense still is not good. Okay. I understand what they did the last 2 games. They routed back-to-back opponents in the Jags and the Steelers, but this run defense still has a lot of holes. This is, if you were to ask, like, what is the type of get right matchup for the Falcons, who are now coming off back-to-back bad losses on their own? The get right spot is the Houston Texans at home. And I know he's expensive, but I love Bijan Robinson this week. And I could go on. Like, he's averaging about 80% of snaps over the last 2 weeks. Then someone wants to say, yeah, they were playing from behind. He's more involved as a pass catcher. I get all of that. But still, this is one of these positions where Bijan Robinson could have a monster game, an efficient one. And if you told me that he'd get around 20 touches in a spot against Houston at home, there's virtually there's no world where I'm not going to be interested in that.
Me too. Obviously, I mean, I'm all about paying up for him when I can find the money. I like them. Anything, again, just going to Odd Chopper for a second. Anything inside 3, which you can find. There's 2.5s all over the place. I'm comfortable with Atlanta. I just think that they're a team that you're gonna have to try to. Their results are gonna look so different because when they have to play from behind, they look helpless. They look like maybe the worst team in the league.
Ritter's not good. We know
awful.
that he's not good. They don't.
But there is another side to it. What happens when they play from ahead? What happens when they can implement Ritter? Just take what they give you, lean on your running backs, don't do anything stupid. They're at home. I feel pretty good about it. And I mean, coming off, I'm not even going to tangent to what college football yesterday. So coming off that, you should run to bet the Texans while you can. But some of those games, losing games where the coach can just kneel down if he wants, but nah, let's just go for it. Did you see that, Loughy?
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, the U is back. But getting back to reality, Bijan, really important play for me today.
Spags, thoughts on this game? We can start whichever side you want.
I think the Bijan side looks pretty good to me. I still think that there is a chance that Tyler Algier could come in and break the Bijan hope that is going to be going into the slate today, with about 25% of the field expected to be on Bijan, according to Stochastic ownership. 20% is what I was seeing around the industry before the show. So I think for Bijan, this is a pretty good spot for him for sure. You just always have the risk point of him not getting the red zone touches. And I think that's something that makes Tyler Algier kind of interesting at 4,700. This Texans D on the year, worst team defending red zone rushes, 0.45 EPA per rush allowed there, which is a sign, like Loughy mentioned, of a defense that even if they've had some success other parts of the field, if you can't stop red zone runs, you kind of overall can't stop the run. So I think that's going to benefit Bijan between the 20s. It's going to benefit Tyler Algier inside the red zone / Bijan, whatever they want to give him there. So I think both those guys are kind of live as plays, and don't want to stack up Ritter by any stretch, but I think the Atlanta side looks good. And tournament shots, CJ Stroud, I would still take, but like these guys mentioned, I think that there is potential talk here for CJ Stroud, just given how the public has fallen in love with him. But if you're going to have Nico and Tank Dell under 10%, I could take some shots at Stroud in the big tournaments.
So I have 2 things there. One comment and one question. One, as far as the backfield goes, I could see that too, where Algier, I think Algier is going to get more work than he has over the last 2 games. I think this team has been, and I would say, entirely game script dependent, right? They are. They're trash if they're playing from behind. And if they get out to if something goes wrong and Ritter gets picked and it's a pick 6 and Houston goes up 14-0, then everything I'm saying right now goes out the window. I get that, right? Ben, you would agree.
Yes.
But at the same time, even in week 2 against Green Bay, close game, weren't forced to throw a ton, even though Ritter was decent. Bijan Robinson still had 23 touches and 24 looks. Week 1, He had 16 total looks, 16 total touches, and that was his first game as a pro. So I think it's still very live that even if Algier gets more work, that Robinson also at his cheapest price point of the season for any main slate that we've had this year, because he was in London last week. I still think we're talking about a spot where he could still be excellent, even if Tyler Algier gets worked in more. My question to you, are you playing any Tyler Algier?
I think I'm going to jam in a little bit here. Sim-wise does not look like the friendliest play, but he's going to have zero ownership, and he is a lever against a 20% owned guy. So I think that alone kind of justifies Algier, as well as just getting off the beaten path salary-wise. But you shouldn't have a lot of him. Like, I think if you're playing him, having 5% is probably giving you enough upside there. And I'm with you on the Bijan side too. I just, having a guy like Algier there just caps like the apex ceiling that he can hit. And I think that's sometimes tough at his price.
Like the McCaffrey game last week against, I get that. I do. Fortunately, he's cheaper, but I definitely get that. Do you guys, Ben, have any interest on the Houston side today?
So I don't think it's the worst spot in the world, but I'll be honest, I'm not really getting to a ton of them because, first of all, I'm not getting to any Atlanta stacks for obvious reasons, mostly one-offs. And then you've got receivers that I get it. They've been great, but I'm operating under the assumption that some of that regression may come in, and Nico Collins has been awesome. There's no doubt about it, but he's coming off another huge game. Got 32 targets over 4 weeks, very, very healthy, but I still think there's an element of pick your poison with him, Collins, Dell, and Woods. And then there's Pierce, who I think in some world might be, if you think the game flips the other way, I mean, he had 24 carries in a game that they controlled from start to finish. That's out
Last week was the first week where he actually saw that bell cow back roll on the ground.
But, as much as I've already said, I like Atlanta. I think Atlanta wins. I know it seems impossible, but there is a chance I'm wrong, highly wrong. And when that probably inevitably happens, if Houston plays from ahead, there's no reason he can't have crazy volume. So I think if you want to flip the script, you can make a case for Pierce.
What about you, Spags, the Houston side of this game? It's interesting because I think all of us are kind of in alignment with how we think the game is going to go. But guess what? That doesn't mean shit if the game goes differently. And we saw that on Thursday Night Football. The script flipped real quick early in that game and never recovered.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Pierce believer, so that makes it tough. It's not a great run matchup either. -0.2 EPA per rush allowed by Atlanta, a -0.4 in the red zone. Those are two of the better marks in the league as I kick my camera. Point being, I think that Pierce is just, he's a guy that people you can talk yourself into. The game flow that Ben talked about there, I think is the one way that he can get there. But the talent, I think, has been so low this year. He was a 33% avoided tackle rate guy last year. He's down under 15% this year. Like, he doesn't have the same juice that he had in a better offense. And I think that would worry me a little bit about him. But the Stroud stacks you could talk me into just because, again, you're getting 10%-ish ownership for Nico, for Tank. Robert Woods is kind of a pivot to the Khalif Raymond and Wan'Dale Robinson at a 4K salary on DraftKings. So the Stroud stacks would look the best to me. And I'm just not enough of a Pierce believer. And though I think you guys actually made the best case you could make for Pierce.
All right. Well, let's keep it moving then, boys. Tennessee and Indianapolis. This is This is a weird one. By the way, you hear us talking about some of these owners box projections and strategy there over with their super flex format. If you guys are trying to get a week of all of our tools, everything like the Sims tool, incredible tool. You can really make some good adjustments to that the way you want to, like customize the lineups that you're getting, or you can just let it rip with the contest generator, the post contest simulator. This gets slept on for sure. Ben, the podcast that we've been doing on Tuesdays using that, how valuable is using something like that to look over how all of the lineups played out, what the pre-simmed ROI was, what the actual ROI and all the lineups looked like?
It's, first of all, it's just a ton of fun to just kind of go in there and poke around and see what you can find. But in terms of changing things, seeing things, we brought up on this show, what about Montgomery and Raymond together or something like that? The reason we did that is because we discovered wow, there's a lot of these coming up in some of these tournaments. Doesn't mean it always works, but you see new strategies. You see some of those regular top name players doing things that maybe you've never thought of. It's such a valuable tool. Of course, everything about making your lineups and building that process is great. But during the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, reviewing what happened and getting better from it is an invaluable part of that process.
Yeah, without question. And I won't bury the lead on you guys because I'm talking ownership projections here, the generator contest simulator, post contest simulator, lineup generator, premium Discord, boom bust tool, everything. The top stacks tool, which we'll get into in a little bit. All of our tools. Once you get these, there's no add-on or anything like that. It's not like, oh, you have this, now you have to get this and this. Anything you need to build NFL lineups, right? The preeminent tools out there, you're getting a week entirely free. And that's not just main slate. That's tonight's slate. That's afternoon slate. That's Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, all of that. The link to ownersbox.com, the description has the link. It's in the description. Jordan also threw it into chat. You sign up there. Minimum deposit is $10. Now, you don't need a promo code. Just use the link. And once you sign up and deposit, if you email us at support@stokastic.com, we'll get you in with all the tools before today's slate starts. All right? So you're getting everything we have for the entirety of the week, all of our tools. And there's a $500 first match deposit bonus at Owner's Box. Up to $500. If you have the means to do so, take advantage of that. Get in on these Superflex contests, which are awesome. You don't have to play a defense. You don't have to be like me on the afternoon slate and have everything mostly right outside of that Dallas defense, coming in underweight on that. Really cool. And look, the overlay's been crazy. Right now, $25K up top, $125,000 prize pool in the flagship contest, 34% filled. We are about 2 hours away from kickoff. The free money is the best kind of money to get. Like Ben said, if you have 32, and if you have 14 teams that make I'm using this because that was good. If you have 14 teams that make the playoffs and the NFL goes from 32 and you take 5 teams out and now you just have 27 teams, the odds of you making the playoffs are exponentially higher than they would have been. Same thing with you cashing over at Owner's Box when you're getting that type of overlay. So check it out. Link in the description and chat. Sign up now before I'd say 11:15 is what they usually say, the customer support guys, and get all of our tools for the entirety of the week. Minimum deposit, $10. Just use that link. Don't need a promo. Get access to everything. All right, so let's talk about the next game here, Spags. You've got Tennessee and you've got Indianapolis. Tennessee, another team you want to talk about parity. Embarrassing loss to Cleveland. Then the recency bias kicks in. Everyone likes the other side of this game. They come out and they smoke the hobbled Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, going into this one, they are 2.5-point favorites against the Colts, who've actually looked pretty good in their own right this season. How are you playing this Tennessee team, specifically Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins, with Treylon Burks out as well?
Yeah, I think Henry and Hopkins both look pretty good. Hopkins, I think, a good cash game play as well as one that I'll get in some tournaments. You could maybe talk me into a little bit of Tannehill stacks overall, but I think Derrick Henry is the one that stands out the most to me. And frankly, I worry about it a little bit. The Tennessee D is probably the chalk defense of the week. Also looks like the best simulated defense on the week too, and across pretty much every site out there. So that's something for Tennessee that I think looks a little bit tough, where I believe a lot in AR. I believe in the skills. That said, Tennessee stuffs the run better than anybody. They also kind of crush the inside lanes more than anybody else. So that could really be a really volatile spot for AR, where he's either going to get gobbled up by a lot or he's going to kind of break outside, and then you'll have the upside that we've seen the last few weeks. And I would like to believe he'll hit the latter, but I don't have enough confidence in that necessarily. So the Tennessee side, I think, feels a little bit safer. And I think this could be the game too, where Derrick Henry, the usage has not been great for him in terms of the snaps overall. But this game where you just want to keep the ball away from Anthony Richardson, keep it away from a fast-paced Colts team that really schematically, offensively is still pretty advanced despite AR's limitations, I think is really the game where Derrick Henry could have 25, 30 touches and have 2 touchdowns, and he could be the slate breaker in a week where everybody's going to be playing all these chalk guys that look really good.
Ben, what about you on this one?
Yeah, I feel similar. I mean, certainly we've kind of talked about this with the Titans a lot already this year of like, well, they want to preserve him, but then they can't because they need to win games. And you've seen kind of, they lose in week 1. Then he has 25 carries. They're just destroyed in week 3. Then he has 22 carries in the win against Cincinnati. These are important games, divisional games on the road, slight favorite. Derrick Henry should be very busy. I have made a case for, and I want to stress, against the grain, low-owned stacks. I do have I forced in a Tannehill, Hopkins, and you can kind of mix and match with them, even if you want another one, just to be different in this game. I certainly think that that's not going to be popular. And then you have a lot of money to spend up as your one-off. So it's not the worst game in the world. I do think it's tricky on the Colts side in particular, but I do have exposure to the Titans and a couple different variations.
So you haven't really changed your mind up since we did the Tuesday show?
No, I still think, I mean, listen, there's a couple of pay down quarterbacks where if you told me Danny Dimes or Tannehill or Zach Wilson or Dobbs, one of them or 2 of them put together really, points per dollars that you would bank on, I believe that, and I think that sets up potentially interesting lineups this week.
Okay. Spags, Richardson's been your guy all season long. How much of him are you getting to today?
I'll force my way to about 5%-ish. I think the field's projected to be at 4% on Stochastic, a little bit higher around the industry, but I want to at least be there. He has, slate winning upside every week. Like I don't want to casually throw that away because, of course we all know that, but he legitimately does have slate winning upside every week. It's just this matchup to me is one that feels particularly ugly. Like Tennessee, we know they've stopped a lot of running backs. QB and running back runs are not the same, but they know what they're getting after. And I do think there's a lot of similar principles they could bring to make it tough on AR. Probably going to spy on him throughout portions of the game as well. That could limit the upside there. But I think, again, just the tournament flyers. The risk point, though, is that we saw last week a lot of people were all over AR Pittman stacks, AR Kylan Granson stacks, and he's just the target distribution is pretty tough. So he's one QB that I guess you could maybe play naked. I'll still probably play him stacked up with one of these guys. But I believed in the world of him. I just don't know this is a spot for him, and I'm pretty comfortable playing the Tennessee D against him.
All right, then I don't want to spend too much time on this game, but let's wrap it up with this. Who would you say are your favorite plays from this game, and just overall your favorite way to play it?
For me, it would be Derrick Henry and Hopkins, and then I think some shares of stacks of Anthony Richardson, probably a little bit more of a lean towards Pittman. But I think Josh Downs, price tag, again, another pivot point to the Khalif Raymonds and also the Wan'Dale Robinsons. And I guess a little bit of Kylan Granson, but I don't have the most confidence in him versus Travis Kelce as the chalk tight end of the week.
What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I see it the same way. Certainly, I think Derrick Henry is going to get the work and get the opportunities. But if you want to change it up, Hopkins price point and even a Titans stack is not the craziest thing in a tournament.
Okay. Single stacks though, just like skinny stacks.
I think that's probably where that, or even Westbrook Akina, another guy. There's a lot of guys in the 3 to 4K range that I think you could roll the dice with. And so I don't mind throwing him in again if you want to be aggressive, or the other guy, your boy Loughy at tight end. Who, Chiggy, he's super athletic. It's just, the floor is like 1.
I'm not sure I can claim him anymore. I want to, though, because I don't really think any of this is his fault. There have been some great opportunities there, and Tannehill's just completely missed him.
Yeah, that's kind of, again, it's all dice rolls in those ranges. The floors are not safe, but I'm okay with that. So yeah, the more I talk through it, I actually might try to pair Tannehill, Hopkins, and one of the randos on the Titans.
Okay. Likely going to be Chig, too. You would think, right? You think Westbrook Akina?
Yeah, potentially.
Okay. Well, let's talk about New Orleans and New England, if we have to, Spags. Last week, there was so much, bullshit reporting, and it's not like you're blaming anyone for this, because they're hearing it. It's just there's only so much that you can take at face value. There was Ezekiel Elliott is primed to get starter reps in this game, and then just saw less than half the touches of Ramondre Stevenson. Now they got blown out. That was the same game, right? Wasn't that Cowboys last week, right?
Cowboys was 2 weeks ago, wasn't it?
The Cowboys destroyed last week.
It was Cowboys Patriots last week, right?
Time really does blur together when you're doing these.
Yeah. I know it's tough. I just had a complete absence of memory there, but. I don't know, man. I actually want to start with the Patriots on this, because Ramondre Stevenson, you're a best ball guy. This guy was a third round, every single draft play that didn't really see that much variation between where he was getting drafted. He's been terrible this year. Now the offense itself has been stagnant for 4 straight weeks, but this backfield's been gross. And then in the passing game, once in a while, you'll get some of those rogue big performances from one of these guys. Maybe it's Juju. Maybe it's Hunter Henry. Who the hell knows? Maybe it's Mike Gesicki, Devontae Parker. But this is one of the least appealing offenses to target week in and week out. And I don't want to sleep on the fact that while they had a rough performance last week against Tampa, this is still an above average Saints defense.
Yeah, I don't know that I love much on New England. I also just not the biggest Ramondre believer. Like Loughy mentioned in best ball last year, he was a 110 level pick. This year he was going top 30, and it's just not the same play then, especially on an offense this year that looks so much worse and frankly is getting worse by the week, seemingly as they put more stuff on tape. Teams are able to figure him out even more easily. So I think this is an ugly game. You can talk me into a little bit of Ramondre. But I think even that, like I want to have less in the field projected by Stochastics to be at about 13%. I'll have less than half of that. I don't know that I have the most faith here. New England, benching Mac Jones in games. It's just been a team that's not got a lot of talent, and whatever talent they do have, they're not being put in a position to succeed. Juju's knees are going to explode. I don't know what you do with New England, but I think they win this game. It's just going to be the ugliest game, I would guess, of the week.
Certainly feels that way, Ben, on both sides. And in New Orleans, hit on both sides of this game for me too, because I would imagine you're not going to have a ton on the Patriots. But
no, I won't. And yeah, New Orleans, I don't want to bury that. Talk about disgraceful performances. Absolutely throttled. Just like non-competitive. I did not see that coming at home. And now they have to hit the road here. It's not a good spot for either team. Certainly, I would say Kamara is the most interesting piece of this. The field would say that as well. Anytime you can get that type of target share, convertible targets too, even if they don't do anything, as we saw last week, you can get there. I mean, if he gets 10, 12, 14 targets, that floor is locked in. If he scores, he definitely gets there. So I get that. I'm not really sure. Michael Thomas and Olave, I think they're fine at their price points, but I'm not running to get them either. That's the extent I have. I have no interest in New England. That defense is now, they lost some key pieces. I worry about New England in general. I think they're probably headed for the basement of the East.
Yeah. Do we think Jonathan Jones is going to play, Spags?
I mean, as a known secondary watcher, I would say I think he's got a 50-50 shot.
I know you don't care, but at the same time, like this team they're dropping guys like flies in the secondary. I think it's actually a legitimate problem for this team right now.
Yeah, it's a problem. I mean, I guess you believe with the Patriots, it's just like, at a certain point of the year, whether they start slow on defense or start hot on defense, they're going to kind of figure it out defensively, if not offensively. So that tends to be my overarching Patriots belief. And they've been good enough on the year. Like they really stopped the run well. I don't think that's all Judon. It's definitely not Christian Gonzalez stopping that. So I think they'll hold up against the same stuff New England always does, but probably a little more fragility going deep. But Derek Carr can't throw deep right now because he's got a shoulder sprain, but doesn't want to lose his job.
Yeah, that's right. That's an issue. And then Ben labeled on one of our shows last week, Specs, he labeled the Saints as a bizarro freak show in the sense of like, just, if it's not Carr, it's going to be Winston, but then it's going to be Taysom Hill, and then it's going to be all of this weird stuff. And, something odd always happens with this offense, and they still manage to find out or figure ways to not score enough points. And you look at last week, Alvin Kamara with over 20 fantasy points and basically no yards, 13 receptions for 33 yards. One of the oddest, most bizarre stat lines I've ever seen, to the point where I saw it on a box score, and I actually went and checked another box score from an entirely different site to make sure it wasn't just populating wrong on that site. I'm serious. 13 for 33 is one of the strangest things I've ever seen as far as pass catching goes.
Yeah, he had a negative 1.5 ADOT last week, so he was getting it behind the line of scrimmage and then basically getting tackled shortly thereafter.
Every time.
I think it's going to happen again. I just don't think, like the Patriots, the one thing they do is they don't miss tackles. They get in there fast. They wrap guys up. So it's entirely possible he has another 12 catch for 24-yard day, and that's enough PPR points, I guess.
Do you have interest in the Saints then?
Kamara, yeah. I think you could play Kamara. He's kind of a pivot point to some of the other guys that I think are better plays like Montgomery, Achane, and I think Mixon. But he's not, I don't think he's as good of a play as in particular Montgomery and Achane and Mostert, I guess, to a lesser extent. But I think that he's still a play that you can get just because it's hard to ignore 10 plus targets that are completely easy targets to get, that you could theoretically get every week.
All right, well, now we get into a far more interesting game. Really, we're heading into the 4:00 games now. Philly, LA Rams, Cincinnati, Arizona, Kansas City, Minnesota, and the Jets and Denver. All of these games, even New York and Denver, 43.5 point total. Some of the lowest total games are on the early slate. New Orleans, New England, of course, all of these are on the same, but you get what I'm saying here. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Houston, Atlanta's at 41.5. It's funny too, Ben, you might have some lineups. You might go into 4:00 and look at your contest and go, oh my, this is, I'm ruined. And then realize that you have a ton of lineups that have 6 or 7 guys that haven't played yet.
Oh yeah, that could happen. I will be on the opposite of that, where I'll be like, you know what? Hard work pay. I finally have it. I may not win, but at least I've locked in a nice little double or triple up. And then 3 hours later, I lock in negative 97% ROI because of these late games. So yeah, don't go car shopping after the 1 p.m. window today because you're just getting started.
Want to know how I'm not a homer with this stuff? Look at chat right now. Lance Dunbar's burner says, cue the Loughy, I don't like this spot for the Eagles take. And then literally 2 comments later, here comes Loughy with his homer take. So which is it, boys? What's it going to be? I'd say that puts me pretty much down the middle. Boy, do I love the Eagles today. No, actually, matter of fact, I think this is a weird spot. I don't think it's a bad spot. It's first of all, it's a 50.5 point total. So please forgive me if I have some interest in Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown, who might, one of the most dominant players after the catch in football. Forgive me if I don't think DeAndre Swift, who had the biggest separation in snaps and touches between him and Gainwell of the season last week with both of them on the field. I think these guys are fine. Devontae Smith is where I actually want to start with you guys, though, and we're going to come full circle. We'll hit on all of this. At this price point, and I think you could probably – I think him and Jalen Waddle are similar in the sense that both of them can have these huge blow-up games, but at the same time, they're all priced pretty closely to some other guys that are the clear number ones with massive target shares on this team, and they don't need to rely on Spags 6 or 7 targets to have 2 40+ yard touchdowns or something. So I really just want to know first how you're approaching a guy like Devontae Smith, who's awesome, but also hasn't seen and usually doesn't see those massive target share games.
He saw them a little bit more last year. So I've been and Loughy can, definitely poke holes in what I'm going to say here, but I follow the Eagles kind of closely just because we're here and the wife always has the games on because she is a fan. And I felt like last year, the Eagles were more of a 1A, 1B situation. And I think the shift to Brian Johnson has made this AJ Brown number 1, Devontae number 2. And I feel like that's showing on the field, showing with stats so far, 10.5 attempted touches for AJ Brown, 7.3 for Devontae. I think Brown's the better play. I'm willing to play Devontae about a third of as much as I'm going to play AJ Brown. But AJ Brown, I think, is really interesting because he's the lever against Jamar Chase. We've seen him go off enough times. He was kind of the player that broke up a lot of the potential Keenan Allen chalk last week. Obviously, Keenan Allen wasn't great, but still AJ Brown was a pivot point at the salary. I think that's the role that AJ Brown has DFS-wise this week. But Loughy, I guess, do you think that they get back on the same tier? Because the way they're using him, I just think they're treating AJ Brown like he's the alpha, and then I think Devontae is being treated like the beta.
And I think, honestly, it's probably how it should be because it's not like Devontae Smith isn't still getting involved. It's not like he's just blanked. But I still, there was all this conversation in the preseason, like Devontae Smith is the best receiver on this team. He's better than AJ Brown. I didn't and refused to buy into something like that because as good as he is, AJ Brown can take the ball 8 yards deep and find himself in the end zone after a 60-yard run. He's just so incredibly versatile. Smith's awesome. It's just, I guess what I'm saying is when you're talking about salaries here, if let's say you're hand building lineups, do you not think that it's kind of difficult to take only $600 savings and just jam more Devonta Smith over AJ Brown right now?
Yeah, I don't think that's the wisest move unless you were going to make a build where you fade the 3K guys who are going to be in every lineup. And you basically have a lot of guys between 5 to 7K. And then Devontae is your high price guy.
Sure.
I think that could work, but it's just it's not as easy as plugging in AJ Brown. And I think Brown's had the better opportunity, higher air yard share. He's got everything going his way that it feels deliberate to me.
Yeah, right. And you know what else though, Ben? Take Dallas Goedert too. Sirianni and company keep saying how they got to get him more involved, but it hasn't happened yet. And even when they do, it's 6 for 40 or something. So I just really want to know how you guys are looking at this Eagles team today. I know you were very interested in Hurts and Brown stacks last week when they weren't particularly popular, and they ended up having huge games.
Yeah, I mean it's a crazy explosive offense. We've seen this for there's Evans and Godwin, Lockett and Metcalf, Higgins and Chase. You get a couple of teams that have 2 guys that you could argue on other teams would be the guy. What I always look to is, we talked about this with the Miami backfield. How much will I be rewarded if I try to make a hero call and go to Smith over Brown? Is it massive? Is it one's 30% and one's 2%? Okay, then I'd probably do it and not think twice. One's 12% and 8%, now you're choosing basically best available. And I think it's
is that what it is right now?
No, it's about, on Owner's Box, both of them are not getting a ton of ownership. And across really most of the industries, you see Devontae Smith's about half the ownership of AJ Brown. I see like 14 to 7%, 8 to 4. It's a decent pivot, and I'm okay with it. But I think it's hard to push back on what you guys talked about with AJ Brown. Just the guy can do so much. The targets are there, and the price point is not drastically different.
Yeah, you're right. Owner's Box, neither of them. DraftKings, you're talking about 15% AJ Brown to 7%. Devontae Smith, Spags. On FanDuel, you've got AJ Brown at around 15. It's around 16% in our stochastic. I almost said awesome. Damn, throwback. And our stochastic ownership projections, you've got Devontae Smith at 11% at a $700 discount. Does that change anything for you looking at ownership with their prices being pretty similar?
I think he would have to be cheaper, or AJ Brown would have to be more owned, or he'd have to be less owned for it to stand out more so to me. But a $600 difference, 15% ownership compared to 8 or 7, it just doesn't do enough for me to force my way there when I really think that the game so far, the intent of the team has to me shown that AJ Brown is a tier above how they want to treat him. It certainly can flip, but I just don't think you're getting enough of a tournament upside by either the price discount or the ownership discount.
What are we doing with DeAndre Swift, Spags?
I'm not getting much of him. I think the Gainwell renaissance / their determined involvement of him / if the game gets out of hand, they go to Gainwell pretty much immediately because they want to keep Swift healthy. It scares me off of Swift enough, and he's at a price tag where there's a lot of these guys we want to play. That said, I get the game theory logic of it, but still 10% ownership projected for Swift. 13% around the industry is what I was seeing. So I don't think, again, you're not getting enough of a discount going to Swift when they're, I think, just on their face, much better plays.
Ben?
I feel the same way. I don't hate the play by any stretch. It's just where almost every decision point where he comes up, there are 2 or 3 other guys where I'm like, yeah, I would rather have them in that situation.
It does feel that way. Now, what about the Hurts single stacks today? This is where I want to, or double stacks today. 50.5 total game. Let's focus on this before we flip the page over to the Rams, who are getting Cooper Kupp in the lineup for the first time all season. Ben, what does your stack exposure look like to Philly right now?
Yeah, I am getting to some of them. My biggest problem that I hope one of you two can solve is, do I take a run back? I kind of want one, but I'm not exactly sure who that's going to be on the other side. So right now, like one of my favorite teams is a Hurts, AJ Brown, Goddard stack. And I don't have a Ram on the other side. And again, I think that's fine. The Kupp situation, I'm not in love with Kyren Williams in this spot. So I had a tricky time with the Rams side. I'm fine if you can get Jalen Hurts stacks, though.
Spags, that's a great question that we could probably try and answer here, because on the Rams side, you're talking about an elevated price on Nakua because Cooper Kupp hasn't played all season. Cooper Kupp's price point isn't down. And then Kyren Williams is fine, but he's up in price now, despite seeing a ton of work. And then Higbee coming off an 11 target game, but you introduce Kupp back into this, and how much meat's left on the bone for Higbee.
Yeah, that's the concern I would have with any bring back. And I think I am still getting a little bit of Puka, still getting a little bit of Higbee, not as much Kyren as last week, where Kyren, I think, was a play that was impossible to avoid, which does maybe raise some questions. But I think you could maybe talk yourself into those guys for a certain amount, but I wouldn't want to have them be portfolio defining, just because, like Loughy mentioned, having Kupp in the mix, that's such gravity, like that's going to come his way. He's going to take away some of those Puka routes that have worked the best. The F roll is what they call it in the Rams, where it's like the primary receiver role. They move around. Initially, that was going to be split between Puka and Tutu. Puka ended up playing really well, took it over. Now they both are going to just yield that role to Cooper Kupp for as many snaps as he's out there. So I think that just kind of hurts everybody here, where they're not priced for the situation of Kupp coming back in. Kupp is not priced for the situation of these guys being as good as they've been. And as a result, I think any guy you'd put here, I wouldn't be inclined to force a bring back, just because I think it's very possible that you see the Eagles side get there, but then the Rams side not have anybody useful enough at their prices.
Is there any merit to saying, like, all right, I'm going to play Cooper Kupp because no one's playing him, because he, on its face, he's overpriced coming back for the first time because they're saying no limitations, or I'm going to play Puka Nacua because Cooper Kupp is back and very few people are going to be playing him? Like, is there anything to that argument, or is it just a better spot to not do it?
I don't think you want to be early to this one just because of the potential re-injury risk, the potential usage risk, all of that. And if he were the same price as Puka, maybe you get there a little bit more, but it is a $900 salary difference on DraftKings. That makes it tough. I get the game theory of it. I would like to see him go 1 week because my best guess is that what you see is like 8 targets for Cup, 6 for Puka, and then basically the Puka roll just gets kind of cut between them with a little bit going Tutu's way. And I think that's not great for DFS.
Ben, what about you? Same question, same thoughts here. We got to break this one down because the Rams are. I wish this was a 41 total game. We could kind of just back off a little bit, facing a really tough defense or something. Philly's defense has clearly shown some holes this season. They've dealt with some significant injuries, and now it's a 50.5 total game. Also, this opened 5.5? It's down to 4 now.
Yeah, I think the Rams have a real chance. I mean, certainly the Eagles. You almost lost to Ron Rivera, which, that's a story in itself. But I look at this and I tend to agree with It just, with Cooper Kupp, I try to use this at least once a show. Before you even get to him playing well, you need like 3 or 4 things to go right. Like, he actually needs to not be limited. The offense doesn't need to drastically change. They have to be somewhat effective. And then he has to play actually very well if he gets that opportunity. So I just worry about really trying to thread a needle where a lot could go wrong outside of his control. And then I don't think it's a given that even if we knew all those things were good, that he would automatically get there. So it tends to be a stay away from me. You could always roll a dice with a player that good, but not a primary concern for me.
Okay. So then who would your favorite play from the Rams be if you're running it back?
I think it would be Higbee. And I'm not in love with that, or Kyron Williams. But again, the Rams are a tough team for me today.
So you like Eagles stacks, just to close this out, without worrying too much about trying to nail the right run back.
So with run backs and just in general, at some point, and Spags already mentioned this, it's not just about the team. It's about their price points. Like, the Rams could be effective in this game and push the Eagles without any Ram being someone you need or want in your lineups just because of their salaries.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we got 3 games to go. Some really fun ones coming up. I'm loving these late games for sure. Another thing and if you guys want to take a second and just ignore the next minute of this show, go for it. However, if you are in one of these 6 states, I would highly suggest you stick around and hear me out. If you're in Colorado or Virginia or Ohio or Iowa or New Jersey, and especially in Kentucky, I know we surprisingly have a lot of Kentucky viewers. Bet365 right now has a promo going where if you bet $5, you are getting $150 over at Bet365. Now, it's essentially, think of it this way, right? Take a step back, think of it this way. Takes you 2 minutes to sign up, verify yourself, and deposit. Minimum deposit is $10. So you only have to put half of that down. It's $5. My recommendation is always nice little parlay, because if you hit that, you're going to be in business. If you don't, you got 150 coming your way. And if you win it, you got the 150 coming, just, a windfall on top of your big parlay win. It's the same thing as saying, all right, well, what other spot in life can I make $150 in 2 minutes? Can I make $75 a minute by using my fingers to go sign up, throw a deposit down? The link's in the description. You'll see it there. It's right there. Bet365. Jordan threw it in the chat as well. If you're in Colorado or Virginia, Ohio, Iowa, or New Jersey, it's $5 into 150. Anywhere else in life this offer comes across your table, you're going, I will take that. Thank you. In Kentucky, if you're in Kentucky, they just launched sports betting. It's bet $1 on a $10 deposit. It's only 10% of that, and get $365 at Bet365. Get on as many books as possible, especially those of you guys, even if you're new to betting. That's the one thing you should always know. You get on as many books as possible for 2 reasons. One, you want to make sure that you're getting the best odds, the best lines everywhere, and never making the mistake of playing on one single book, getting bad odds and losing to the hook, right? Or losing on the juice over time. 2, you just want to get the free money when it's available to you. And Bet365 is one that probably a lot of you guys are not on yet. So if you're in one of those 6 states, get in on that. Of course, must be 21 years old or to gamble. If you or somebody you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Link in the description and in chat. Check that out. It's a great, great offer for those 6 states. All right, Spags, Cincinnati on the road. Joe Burrow says he's feeling better than he did the last few weeks. I don't know, man. Take that for what it's worth at this point. T. Higgins is not expected to play. This is apparently a pain tolerance thing. So my guess is he's not going to be out there today. But this game is a 45-point total and a 3-point spread. If we're not looking at Jamar Chase, despite how bad Burrow has played, if we're not looking at Joe Mixon and even Tyler Boyd here, I don't know what to tell you, because I'm going to have a lot of these guys, as gross as it feels with how poorly they've played. I'm going to have a lot of Cincinnati today.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be wrong to do that. The spot against Arizona just competitive enough every week that sometimes teams do have to push their ceiling a little bit more. Arizona beat the Cowboys. So we can't forget that they actually are able to win games, even though it does feel like they're mostly a spry, kind of spunky, competitive tank team. They are actually playing these games pretty well. Chase and Nixon are going to be so heavily owned. I don't know what to do with them, because I do think you could just take them out of your player pool, build different lineups, and I think that would make some amount of sense. That said, again, if the game's going to be competitive, if these guys are going to play a little bit better in a spot against an Arizona defense that's weak against the pass, weak against the run, bad EPA metrics for both of those, giving up an 88% catchable ball rate, an 11% stuffed run rate. They can't do anything to keep teams off the field and get them off the field, which is probably what the Bengals need. So I'll be with the field on Chase. I'll be with the field on Mixon, and I'll have some amount of Boyd, Irv Smith, and doubles with Joe Burrow. But Cincinnati's disappointed so many times that I'm not going to be surprised if they do here. It just makes too much sense to avoid.
Yeah, I'm willing to deal with the repercussions, is how I would put it at this point. Willing to deal that that going into this, we know how bad they have looked. That's okay. Especially if Higgins is out, Ben. That's what it comes down to for me. I mean, already a pretty concentrated offense. Spags just laid it out nicely with that Arizona defense. There's a lot working for him here. One of the things in the concepts that you and I discussed, you pointed it out immediately when I asked you this question earlier in the week, was what about some Mixon and Chase lineups, or Mixon and Boyd lineups without having to rely on Joe Burrow to have a huge game with his arm?
Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility within this game. I think you can deploy Burrow and probably have two with him, just because him getting there running would be the ultimate chef kiss for any slate at this point. That would just be very standard given his limitations with the calf. But traditionally, you would think he's going to need to cross 300 yards to really get you there. And you want a couple of guys probably to allocate to that. I'm not making any aggressive stance. I have a good amount of Cincinnati. The field does as well. If they go crazy, I won't be crushed. And if they completely implode, I won't be crushed. That's really how I'm playing this game. I think it's a good game with targets on both sides. But at the same time, I don't think there's one guy where I say that is my guy this week, and he's coming from the Bengals.
How insane am I to want to get to a little bit of Josh Dobbs on the other side?
Yeah, I mean, you made that case on Tuesday. And I was just like, yeah, that's a bad idea. Now I look at my lineups. I see it right here. Old Josh Dobbs. Yep. This is a good looking lineup. It's
just
not
so
just
cheap.
That's what I'm saying. It's not about playing, or at least for me, it's not about playing Josh Dobbs. It's about being able to play Derrick Henry and Jefferson and maybe Waddle and AJ Brown, some of these type of guys around the stack. Can they set the table and do their job? And then you've got, I mean, we saw it with McCaffrey last week. There are players across this league that they just get you so many raw points. All you need to do is just allocate enough salary to have them in the lineups, and it'll take care of the rest. So I did get to some Dobbs, and that was not something I expected.
Yeah, it feels gross, Spags. But the one argument I'd make for it, outside of him being cheap, is just he actually has displayed some rushing upside. I mean, he hasn't actually been that bad either. You look at his performances this year outside of that bad game against Washington to start the season. He's had, he's averaging around 50 rushing yards per game on the year. That's not that bad. I'm not saying you just chalk him up for that, but he is willing to take off.
He's one of the more surprising guys, the metrics I look at, where he actually has been a positive EPA guy per rush, a 0.01 EPA per pass, 0.04 EPA per dropback. So he's creating value in every possible facet of QB play. I think he's a perfectly fine play this week. I think the stack with him and Marquise Brown and Zach Ertz, who I worry about playing Zach Ertz every week, because he does have these nice salaries. He does get target volume, but it just feels like Trey McBride can steal a touchdown away, and that, completely submarines it, or just Ertz doesn't do enough. But the price tag's hard to avoid. The double stack works. You could put Connor with Dobbs. I don't think that's crazy either. So Arizona looks good. I think this game is kind of vaguely live for shootout potential, maybe not to get to like 55, 60 points, but enough where like this could be a 28-25 game, or I guess, 31-28 game. And it wouldn't shock me that much just because both defenses are not great. And Arizona's offense is just better than people give credit for, despite, the fact they seem like they're a tank team.
Yeah, we thought coming into the season that this was like the clearest tank team in the world, but they're fighting more than a bunch of other teams this year. Can tell you that much. I think Connor's perfectly good. That line, by the way, is actually blocked for him too. That's the most surprising part for me when it comes to James Conner. I don't hate it. Cincinnati allowing over 5 yards per attempt this season. I mean, look, and Spags laid it out there, Ben, but as gross as this team is, I'll just go back to one thing. It's a 3-point spread in a 45-point total game against the Cincinnati team that, hasn't been able to stay on the field on offense. So maybe there are some spots. Maybe it's that, or maybe it's just you forego that entirely. You don't love the pat. You don't love that, but you get to some Marquise Brown. You get to some cheap Zach Ertz. Maybe some James Conner in the backfield. Like if they, if they're getting towards the goal line, which, is always a question mark with Arizona, that James Conner is going to be the goal line back. He was the goal line back from the moment he stepped foot in Arizona.
Yeah. And again, we have a big sample size of that. And unlike some of the other games, the nice thing about this game, if it goes over the total, even not 65 points, but just low 50, something like that, the price points on most of the targets that we're talking about in terms of playable guys is so much lower. These are not $8,200 plays where we're saying like this game has to go nuts. No, just any reasonable output in terms of touchdowns can get Zach Ertz, Tyler Boyd, Connor. These are not lofty price tags, and that means a lot of different plays can get there in a pretty reasonable output game.
What's your favorite way to play this game?
I think my favorite way to play this game, honestly, is just have these guys in random one-off lineups, just like have a Bengal or have Hollywood Brown. Those are the two, Hollywood Brown's probably my favorite play from the game. I'm comfortable with really anything here, including the stack and the bringbacks from both sides. I think it's a really good game to target. One of my favorite on the slate.
Spags, favorite way to play this? Me too, by the way. It's gonna
it's gonna be very bad, but I'm still excited for a little while here.
This is an 11-8 game or something absurd, but I'm with you. Like I already said, I'm not going overweight, like insanely overweight on a Joshua Dobbs, but I don't mind having a little bit of that stack. So preferably, I want just single stacks there, skinny stacks. I'm not trusting him to support 2 pass catchers, although they're all cheap. So there's that, but his rushing upside gives you something there. And on the other side, I don't love Burrow, but I like the expected volume that Jamar Chase is going to see, the cheap price point on Tyler Boyd. And just there's very few running backs in the league right now that have the volume that Joe Mixon is getting in that Cincinnati backfield, dominating snaps and opportunities. So that's where I'm at here. Spags, what about you to wrap this game up?
Yeah, I think ownership wise, Chase and Mixon will be the guys that represent the most, but I'll have some game stacks too, where I go Dobbs with Mixon and Chase, and then one of the pass catchers, maybe 2. I think there are ways to attack this one and try to capture that upside. So I'm in on both sides of it. I think, just be wary of having a little bit too much Mixon, a little bit too much Chase, because there are guys in those ranges that can work. But if you had a 30-year lineups with those guys, I think that's about right. You'll be basically with the field.
Kansas City and Minnesota. By the way, thank you guys getting us north of 500 likes today. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, you can always just go back on it. Unsubscribe, forget that we even exist. Memory hole this channel altogether. But in the meantime, click that subscribe button. I think you're going to like it. Kansas City and Minnesota. All right, Ben. So 3.5 point spread. Now, this spread has dipped considerably. Didn't move through 3 or anything crazy like that, but 5.5 earlier in the week. I did jump on the Minnesota side at plus 5.5. So do with that as you will. Probably take Kansas City. But hey, if closing line value were the end all be all, I'd be a rich man.
Yeah, I wouldn't be picking out like a 9% clip from yesterday, but I like the Vikings in this game. Plus 160 on the money line, I think, is actually my favorite point at this point. Like, I don't even want the points. Just give me Minnesota to win the game. Good spots. I mean, healthy total. it's more not about, I don't think I need to break any news that Travis Kelce, of course, is an outstanding play. It's, if you're paying up for him, how much are you getting to Wandale and Raymond? And then how much, like the lineup starts to domino, not in a good way, because you start to say, okay, I need to save salary at wide receiver. Then I'm going to go get Bijan, probably Montgomery, see where my stack is. I'll take the Titans defense. And before you know it, you haven't really done anything. So it's not to say that you can't play these guys. I think it's just when you look at Kansas City, to me, it's Kelce, Pacheco, and then everybody else. And when I say everybody else, I'm not even sure who's third, and I'm not sure that they know who's third at this point.
I don't either.
Like, is it Rice?
Well,
he was like 12th to begin the season. I didn't even know he was on the team. Like
that is the thing, Spags, that Rashee Rice now is the kind of, oddly enough, the shiny new toy in Kansas City that people are excited about. And I've been hearing it literally since Tuesday, since I began doing Week 5 NFL content, that Rashee Rice is, you know, he's the value guy to get to. Now, look, to be fair, pulling far less ownership than guys like Khalif Raymond right now or Wan'Dale Robinson, basically half that ownership. But at the same time, this is still a team that Ben said, outside of Travis Kelce and outside of Pacheco, who had 20 carries last week to only 3 for Clyde Edwards-Helaire and 3 for McKinnon, there are no other bona fide viable receiving options, from Sky Moore to Watson, who gets a deep option or two, deep ball. MVS has been a colossal disappointment. Kadarius Toney has been a ghost for most of this season. Like, maybe it's Rashee Rice, but also maybe it's not. How are you playing the Chiefs?
I'm playing a lot of Kelce this week. I think that still seems like the safest approach overall. I'm with you guys on this game being interesting. I really think Minnesota gets dusted pretty bad with the Kansas City defense playing how they are. They're getting pressure on 30% of plays. Kirk Cousins has a 29% pressure rate himself, negative 0.6 EPA on those plays. Like, we've seen him fall apart. He's not quite as bad as a Jordan Love is against pressure. Some other guys in the league too. Kenny Pickett, I think, struggles pretty poorly, but Cousins is bad enough here where I think we are in for a bad Kirk day. So that said, on the Kansas City side, I think that makes Kelce feel okay. If we're assuming that Cousins is going to fail, Kansas City keeps the ball in their field a little bit more. That means more red zone opportunities for Kelce. I would take Pacheco, like you guys mentioned, as the number 3 option or number 2 option, besides Mahomes and Kelce there. And I think Kadarius Toney is still the guy that I would make some bets on. They are feeding him a touch whenever he's on the field. He's just not on the field enough. Rashee Rice, I get the game theory for it, that he is kind of a lever again. Anybody who's 3K-ish range is a lever against Khalif Raymond and Wan'Dale Robinson chalk. But Kadarius Toney, I think, is still in play. I don't know. I might be too take locked on that one from the entire offseason, but if there's a spot he can go off, it's against Minnesota. So I would plant some minor seeds, some little flags for Kadarius Toney.
What about with the Vikings? Jefferson's super expensive. We saw Cam Akers get worked in last week. I think probably Madison's still the guy, and he was efficient last week too. Akers had like 5 for 41 or something. He was nice on those opportunities, but Madison wasn't bad either. Didn't score, so it wasn't like he had a great game, but didn't score. But once you get past Jefferson, like Hawkinson at that price point, and just to kind of wrap this game, because there's a lot of moving parts, Hawkinson's awesome, but you look at that price point when you're wedged, when you're bookended in the salaries at tight end between Travis Kelce and Sam Laporta, that makes life a little bit difficult to click that name.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Hawkinson, I think, is good, but he's not Justin Jefferson. And I think he's the one player, Jefferson, that I'm willing to get on the Viking side. I just really don't believe that Minnesota can hang in this one personally. Like, I think with what they've shown this year, what Kansas City has shown, that tends to scare me away from Minnesota a little bit more. I know it's a decent total here, obviously a high total game, one of the highest on the slate. But Minnesota's found ways to disappoint in similar spots before that. I have some fears, but Addison, kind of interesting tournament dart throw as well. But I think really for me, I'll probably play a lot of Jefferson and not much else.
Ben, who are your favorite plays from this game on both sides?
I think it's just the obvious plays. If I can get money to go get Justin Jefferson, that's great. If I can get money to get Travis Kelce, that's great. And I'm fine with Pacheco. Other than that, it's just flyers.
On like Rice.
I have Addison on a team just because I believe in the talent.
Do you have any Madison?
No.
Okay. Spags, do you have any Alexander Madison?
Like a couple shares, but not anywhere close to the field.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's tough to get there today. I really do. Kelsey's the guy. I almost like this game less as just the full out stack and more just grabbing pieces throughout lineups. Like if I could, in an ideal world, if that's the spot that I could get to, I would love to do something like that. Just have, Kelsey if I have Kelsey in a lineup that has nothing else from this game, that's great, and just if it's, relatively cheap stack and it allows me to get expensive guys elsewhere and Kelsey's in there. Same thing for Minnesota. I have no problem with that. But if you want to game stack this, be my guest. It's just, that's an expensive stack. Like a Mahomes Kelsey with a Jefferson run back is really, really pricey.
No, you're probably playing both 3K guys with that one then, which,
Does that just funnel you into so many similar builds to the field?
Yeah, I would think so.
That's the problem. It's not the plays. It's just, how do you get separation when you have a finite amount of salary left that only fits a handful of like reasonable combinations?
Yeah. And then you know what else is going to happen? It's going to be Kelsey, Mahomes, Rashee Rice. Like, why would you not want to do? Just, if I'm going to go with a cheap wide receiver, I'll just double stack with a $3,600 guy.
Yeah. And then MVS has like 4 touchdowns finally.
Maybe that's actually the move here, is if you're doing it, you just go, no,
And then Sky Moore has 4 touchdowns.
What about Kadarius Toney? You
you know how many? Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, it's Noah Gray. That's what it's going to be.
Blake Bell is back.
Blake Bell, baby.
Justin Watson is back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire Day. You heard it here first. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, no, you know who it's really. Listen, in spots like this, when we just mention everyone, and the one guy we don't mention is Jerick McKinnon, this ends up being the Jerick McKinnon, like 10 receptions for 120 and 2 touchdown game. That's what ends up happening, All right.
Chiefs defense it is.
We had a super chat from Anthony. Thanks, Anthony. Tyreek Hill versus Jefferson today. Single FanDuel lineup. We don't know the field size or whether it's single entry or I don't know if he means single as in single entry or just like that's the only lineup he's playing. But I'd have to know your build. I'd have to know the build here. I think it was Ben that said it earlier. Might have been Josh that said it before we even went live. Like these guys are very, very close in all respects in this spot.
I'd lean Tyreek. But...
I would too, but it's you have 2 outstanding options that could be the highest scoring player on the slate and feel fine with either.
Yeah, I also lean Tyreek Hill, but I mean, if it's 3-0, that means probably play Jefferson. I don't know, dude. It's tough. You can't really go wrong. If you want to base it around the build, that makes sense as well. Anyway, let's wrap this one up, fellas. Then we got live before lock coming up next. Matt Gajewski, Eric Lindquist taking you all the way up to lock. So stick around for that. And remember, guys, Owner's Box, free week of all of our tools. Minimum deposit's $10, but they got a first match deposit up to $500. That main contest is 41% filled. We are less than an hour and a half away from lock. Dead money is the best money in these contests. If you're not there yet, you want all our tools, and you also want to get in some big overlay, not have to worry about defenses, have that sweet super flex format, and all of that with the $500 first match deposit bonus. Link is in the description and chat. And as we mentioned, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, Iowa, Ohio, and Kentucky. Well, Kentucky's $1 in the 365. All the others, 5 in the 150 at Bet365 as well. So we got you covered across all fronts today for that good, sweet, free money going into this main slate today, whether you're playing DFS or betting. And now we wrap it up with Denver hosting the New York Jets. Spags, Breece Hall, no longer on a snap count. I do want to preface this, though. I've seen these these tweets out there, people being like, and by the way, I like Breece Hall at 5,400. I think Broncos are allowing 5.6 yards per attempt. They've been destroyed on the ground. But this notion, to tie Breece Hall is no longer on a snap count to Breece Hall is getting a full bell cow workload. There's nothing that ties that together there. One does not mean the other. One doesn't equate to the other. Could that happen? Absolutely. But I don't think we can go into this and just verify, be like, there's no question that means that Robert Saleh is giving him 80% of the touches today. Just want to say that.
Yeah, the long form of that quote too was not quite as Breece positive either, where they were saying Breece is on a pitch count, but also we have to get Dalvin involved more. He's coming along, and then Tyler Conklin's showing something, and he basically mentioned all the guys that are not getting enough touches across everything. So I wouldn't read into that Breece part. What I would read into though is that I think this is one of the best matchups in football.
Totally agree.
I think you are live for Zach Wilson stacks this week. I put him on a thumbnail on the Splash Play YouTube channel on Friday because I was like, fuck it, we got to get attention somehow. Let's put Zach Wilson on a thumbnail and try to do what we can. But I think he's in play. I think if you stack Zach Wilson with a double with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, it does save you enough money, get you unique enough that you could then plug in some of the chalk plays. You could also get away from Garrett Wilson if you really want to be a hero. I don't know, but Breece on his own probably looks good. If I weren't playing Garrett, I might not be less inclined or might not be as inclined to play Zach Wilson. But this is the spot. Like, this is the best spot where Zach Wilson has momentum going, a lot of hype. The team is feeling good about him. They took the leash off for the first time in probably a year of his career. And now he's going into this matchup against the best matchup in football. Denver defense can't stop anybody. So I like this game a lot. I think it's an interesting one to game stack to go with a lot of Jets. I think it's a sneaky one amidst an afternoon slate that's got a lot more stars than the Jets offense is going to provide.
The fall from grace for this Denver defense is really something to witness, huh?
It's odd because, they still have Patrick Surtain out there, but I don't think they're using him the same ways, or his effectiveness is coming down a little bit. But people always worry about shutdown corners, and then you have an example where this guy was a shutdown corner. He got beat by Devontae Adams last year, and it's been all kind of downhill since. I don't know what Denver's doing wrong, but I mean, it's the motion stuff. They can't defend motion. They don't know what to do when that happens. The Jets don't run a lot of motion, so that's the one thing you can sort of nickel and dime them for. But they're just so bad that I think you're better off playing the Jets having an outlier day.
Listen, I'm with you. And Ben, again, what a week when I'm going, boy, do I love Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, might have some Zach Wilson. And also, did I mention, how about those Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah, times are tough. Shit, I think, honestly, my biggest knock on the Jets stack is that there are other cheap stacks that you have to compete against. It's not just, I love all expensive quarterbacks, and then, well, if I make a Zach Wilson stack, I can do all this crazy stuff. That's true. It's true with Dobbs. It's true with Daniel Jones. It's true with Tannehill. So it's to me more, which one of those do I want to roll the dice with? And I think you make an easy case because Denver's defense is so bad. My other worry with the Jets, I do think that in competitive games like this, their goal is to turn Zach Wilson into Brock Purdy. Which is not conducive to DFS. It's more conducive to winning the actual game. Like, they would sign for no touchdowns and no picks, I think, particularly in games like this. But that's just me kind of inferring. I still have one-offs with Breece Hall. I have Garrett Wilson in the pool. And I do think the Jets will be very much in this game like most people do.
I also know you haven't been particularly fond of picking on this Jets defense this season. And I'm with you.
No, I really respect the Jets defense.
Yeah, I do as well. We saw last week. I mean, people want to talk about Mahomes, but what's that?
I'm sorry. They drop like a surefire pick six basically every week, which I'm not a genius, but if you could catch those, it would really go a long way into helping society. Because every week it's just a pick six and it's just dropped.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's why they're not wide receivers, right? But the backfield for the Broncos, this is a stay away from me today. Like, I don't know. I guess we monitor it. McLaughlin, if Javonte Williams is confirmed out, could be viable. The only thoughts I have there, Spags, is Jaleel McLaughlin's what, 5,000? Right? If you intend on going,
Pirine, I think, yeah.
Yeah, like if you intend on going there, that means that you're getting away from some other really good options that have stable workloads in that same 5K range across this 10-game slate.
Yeah, I think McLaughlin looks okay so far, but Pirine had more snaps last week, was more involved, has the contract money. McLaughlin has had a lot of preseason headlines or talk about him being a guy that they wanted to make sure made the team. He then makes the team, gets a lot of work when he can get in there, but I think it's tough to play McLaughlin. Obviously, we have to hear the status of Javonte. It seems like it can go either way if he's going to play today or not. But I don't love McLaughlin as the play. I just think that Pirine takes enough off the table, and Pirine's cheaper. But I don't think Pirine's the play either. So I don't know that I love anything on this Broncos side. The Jets side, to me, I think stands out a lot more.
Are you getting anyone from the passing game in Denver?
A little bit of Cortland Sutton, a little bit less of Jerry Jeudy, but it's like they had 10 guys targeted in a game recently. I don't know how you really can expect this to condense when Brandon Johnson's out there catching touchdowns, little Jordan Humphrey still running routes. Mims doesn't run enough routes, and if he does, he's a world beater. There's too many dudes in there that are just taking enough off the table or taking enough theoretically off the table.
Ben, final thoughts on Denver before we head out and turn this page.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're stacking the game, I certainly can make a case for a run back, probably one of those pass catchers. But I do respect the Jets defense. And although I think that this game has a wide range of outcomes, which is a good thing, that also means that this game has like 13-6 equity. There's no doubt in my mind that this could be absolutely atrocious.
Hey, follow Ben at JazzRazDFS on Twitter. Go say hi. And while you're there, Chris Spags at Chris Spags. Check out his Splash Play pod as well. That's a good one. And guys, me at Loughy_D, by the way, if you're not repping the Stochastic Hall of Fame avatar yet, what are you doing, man? Go to stochastic.com/avatar. All right. Now, after doing that, all you're going to do is download the avatar. Use it wherever it is you play. DraftKings, FanDuel. Maybe you just got in the owner's box. You're trying to soak up some of that beautiful overlay today. Get that deposit bonus and the free tools. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. And upon doing so, okay, tweet us your wins. Now, this could be in a 5-cent, 25-cent contest. It doesn't matter. As long as you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, you hit us up. It's Stochastic HOF over on Twitter. And of course, include all of us as well, because we love seeing these big wins. You're getting a free month of whatever you want, any package you want, all the tools you need for NFL. Maybe it's NBA that you want, up to $200 value. We got you covered from top to bottom. And you're getting inducted into the Hall of Fame ceremony that we do every single week. We'll do the bragging for you. Put your name up here in the big lights in front of all these thousands of people. Can't beat it, man. So rep that avatar wherever it is that you play. We'll see you back here for the next one. Eric Lindquist, everybody.
What's going on, everybody? Let's get right to it. NFL Live Before Lock, presented by Owner's Box. Look at that transition. Beautiful stuff by Jordan Klein. Look at him being an all-star. He got his game on. He's ready to play, or something like that. Rip, of course. But anyway, we've got Matt Gajewski alongside us here. He doesn't know 90s pop references, but rap, he's got that covered for the people. Matt_Gajewski, how you doing, my dude?
Doing great, man. Excited for the slate today. How are you?
Ready to rock. I just jump in. I'm ready. I don't really know what else to add. Look at Jordan Klein. He's so excited. That is the biggest cup that I have ever seen in my life. Anyway, nobody knows what I'm talking about, so that's not very fun to talk about. What is this week 5 NFL slate? We always start with actives and inactives, and obviously 2 big ones, Jahmyr Gibbs and the sun god, Amon-Ra St. Brown. They were doubtful coming into today from Saturday's injury report. I'm all over Carolina +10. Surely that's going to go poorly. But from a DFS perspective, impossible to not talk about Detroit first. How do you plan to utilize Detroit here, Matt, in the aftermath of them officially being ruled out?
Yeah, this news is even more impactful because of the total in this game. Already a game we would like to target just based on game environment. Now we have a lot of value. David Montgomery, absurd workload once Gibbs went down last week, and he's priced as if Gibbs is playing. So immediately he jumps to the top of price-adjusted projections. And from there, we have some value without Amon-Ra St. Brown, which helps you jam studs up at the top. Great game. I think there's a lot of interesting ways you can approach this for tournaments because it probably gets some ownership too. But I'll definitely be playing the Detroit guys.
Yeah, definitely going to be playing the Detroit guys. David Montgomery going to be a huge part about what we're working about with this slate because, well, running back, I feel like there's a crazy amount of options, and he kind of jumps near the top for me and near the top for everybody. And in cash, is David Montgomery an autoplay for you now, Matt?
Yeah, I'm not playing cash myself today, but he would be the first guy in my lineup. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he is too. And from a tournament perspective, him, Achane, going to be a lot that we're going to be covering here on this show. Welcome. Hit that like button as we get started. We break it down position by position here on NFL Live Before Lock. Great to see some familiar faces there in the chat, including Plan B Smoothies. That's an interesting name. Happy birthday, Loughy. Don't think it's his birthday, but that's always a hilarious bit that we just all cannot get enough of. Let's get ourselves to the quarterback position here today. Lots of stacks. We start on the expensive side where my parents, anytime they attend these Viking games, they always result in pain and sadness. So I'm looking at Patrick Mahomes at the very top of the board. Interesting how you might go about stacking him up with somebody else in addition to Travis Kelce. I can't wait to hear you talk about that. But then Jalen Hurts, somebody I have a ton of interest in going up against the Rams, a game that I do like the over of. It's trailed up to 50.5 now as it's gone along here. Lamar Jackson kind of on an island by himself. We'll get down below that here first. So I guess for tournaments, let's start with the 1v1 here. Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. Who do you prefer in tournaments today, Matt?
You asked me a really hard question because I love them both.
Same.
And I think a lot of it just because people are playing some real greasy quarterbacks today. We'll get to the greasy guys like Josh Dobbs and Daniel Jones and whatnot. But I do think these guys with the elite ceiling are going a bit overlooked. If you force me to just pick one, say you're playing one lineup, you're throwing it into single entry, something like that, I would side with Hurts just because of the rushing equity he provides. But to be honest with you, I'm trying to get a lot of these guys and coming over the field on both of them. Do you have a lot of these guys? I should ask you too.
Yeah, I have a ton of Jalen Hurts. I have a little bit less of Patrick Mahomes, but they are two quarterbacks that are pretty tough to get away from on this slate from a pure ceiling perspective. I think Tua, considering it's 7,100 and how many people are playing Achane, going to like Mostert combined with Hill, getting to maybe some Waddle, some interesting ways to play Miami to get leverage off of how much Achane ownership there is. And now there's so many other running back plays that are available there. He's been running really, really, really well in the touchdown department. I like getting to him further down the board at 7,100. Anthony Richardson's been an absolute stud. I love playing him at 4.3% as well. But Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, I think that in my portfolio of lineups, I'm going to be slightly underweight to Patrick Mahomes, sitting right there at 10%. And Jalen Hurts, I'm going to be overweight, nearly 20% my highest owned quarterback.
I'm not too different than you. I think I'll be slightly over on Mahomes. I'll probably come in like right with the field. He's in 13% of my 150 sets, so nothing drastic there. Definitely not trying to take a major stand with Mahomes. We're in agreement on Hurts. And then you briefly mentioned Anthony Richardson, who ends up being my highest owned quarterback today. I like these studs a lot.
Okay, Anthony Richardson. I'm excited because I think on Owner's Box especially, playing him and Tannehill, pretty easy to do. I like game stacking that one in a number of different ways. Anthony Richardson, you can always play individually. You know, we're really looking for the rushing upside to come along for the party, but playing Pittman as a number one feels just fine by me as well. Tennessee on the other side, it's already been a consolidated target share. No, Treylon Burks opens up even more opportunity, I believe, for DeAndre Hopkins to finally have that DeAndre Hopkins-like game. I really enjoy this game environment, but give all the people the reasons that Anthony Richardson's your highest owned quarterback on DK today.
He's coming up in price, but I think you could argue he should be closer to Mahomes and Hurts. A lot of that because of the rushing equity he provides. We've seen it on multiple occasions already where he doesn't have to have the best real life game and he just dominates from a box score perspective because of the design rushing he actually accounts for in this offense. And then from there, if he has a pretty good pass game, which this is probably the best matchup in the NFL for that, Tennessee has arguably the worst secondary and they're dealing with some injuries. That's just going to help Anthony Richardson even further. This offense is playing fast and they're maximizing his skill set. Also, plenty of ways to stack him. You mentioned a few of those players. If you want to look for an expensive stud, you've got Pittman. You have the cheapies like Granson, like Downs. Tons of ways to play him. And you briefly mentioned Hopkins as well. He's underpriced, so it makes for a pretty easy stack, in my opinion. Game stack, that is.
We're going Downs, baby. No street and no Range Rover.
What's that from? This might be your cadence, Eric. If it's a rap song, I don't know.
It's a rap song. It's Nelly.
My gosh. Nelly's the worst rapper of all time. He's not even a rapper. How dare you put Nelly into that? So
that's all the time we have for Live Before Lock today. Thank you to Owner's Box. Thank you to Jordan. Seriously?
Nelly? I don't have anything.
I don't know how we come back from this. As a show, I don't know how we come back from this.
Nelly stinks.
So anyway, underneath 7K, we have Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, Daniel Jones is there, 5,800. We'll keep him out. We got the 6K range. There's one quarterback that I like above all the rest. One quarterback to lead them all, one quarterback to find them. Lord of the Rings style. Who's your guy?
So I'm going, this includes the guys in the 6K range, not under, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In this range, I like Goff quite a bit as a potential leverage play off all of the David Montgomery chalk. I think he'll come in a little under-owned, but this is a range I honestly don't have a lot of players in. Some Kirk Cousins, but it's more like a sprinkling. Just think he's too close in price to Anthony Richardson. I'd rather access that ceiling on the ground. And then I do have some Stroud. So if you made me pick a second favorite in this range, it would be Stroud. I can see the case you'd make for Burrow. I'm still worried about him individually and that game environment overall. So my favorite's Goff. Second would be Stroud. I would rank Burrow third. How are you approaching these guys?
Yeah, for me, getting back to being professional, because I'm a professional and I can overcome you hating Nelly, even though that's the incorrect take. But Joe Burrow, 6,200. It's been as bad as humanly possible, but this is a great spot in Arizona. Sure, they played good against Dallas one time. How are we feeling about Dak Prescott going into San Francisco? I'm not feeling so good tonight, but I do think Joe Burrow, as the weeks go on, if he can get healthier and healthier and avoid any kind of a setback to the calf, I'm not Joe Burrow. I don't understand exactly what's going on with the injury, other than it seems as though it's tough to get the ball downfield. It's tough for him to do other things, but I love Jamar Chase in this spot. And now with no T. Higgins, you get the ball in the hands of your best player. I like Joe Mixon. I think that's kind of an interesting trio where you try to get all of the touchdowns. And that's not a stack anybody's really putting together today. The combination of Burrow with Mixon, with Chase, not saying that Mixon's going to get involved in the passing game, but if there's 4, 5, 6 touchdowns scored, I feel pretty safe in saying those are your two likely guys to be getting in the box repeatedly against Arizona. Don't mind Malcolm Brown at 5K as a run back over on TK. Don't mind James Conner in that game environment, considering his role in this offense and just the unbelievable amount of snaps he's going to play in competitive games. So Joe Burrow, 6,200, somebody that I've gotten progressively more and more behind as the week's gone on. Jared Goff, hard for me to really land on that here without Amon-Ra St. Brown. Sam Laporta, I guess, would be kind of your main stacking option, but seems as though I'm not getting to him. And then Kirk Cousins, yeah, probably going to have to be throwing it around the lot, but not feeling all that inspired here by my Minnesota Vikings in this spot, outside of obviously playing Justin Jefferson every single week. Pretty much does it for the 6K range, yes?
Yeah, I think it's a decent range. Not one I'm really coming in over the field on anybody, except I imagine I'll be over on Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
But agree with you on Cousins. I'll be light there. Burrow, I imagine I'll be slightly lighter, but I have no issues. He's mainly stacked with Chase. And then Goff is a leverage play for me. So individually, if you're playing one lineup, he's probably not the guy I'm clicking, but with so much coming through David Montgomery, he should come in fairly low owned, especially if you're stacking him with some of these pass catchers. They'll be owned, so I think Goff could be a way to make that unique.
All right, well, let's get ready to vomit. 6K and under. Daniel Jones right out of the get-go. I have a ton of Jalen Hurts, highest known quarterback. Patrick Mahomes sitting around 10% for him. I'm with you. Anthony Richardson sitting in the double digits for me as well. The only other quarterback I have double digits of, why wouldn't it be Daniel Jones as a 13-point dog in Miami in a game environment that, you know, they may or may not be able to protect him, or he just dies. If he dies, he dies on the field of Miami here. It's just terrifying what you saw. Seattle's defense is nothing special, and they were able to get to him ad nauseum. So 5,800 Daniel Jones, maybe I'm crazy, but also if we're going to be playing Wan'Dale Robinson, whose snap share has gone up, I have some Jalen Hyatt in my life. Maybe we can dust off the absolute corpse of Darren Waller and start finding something there at 2%, but I'm playing Daniel Jones, hold my nose play in large field tournaments. I like him sub 6K. Are you with me, or anybody else that you prefer over him?
I'm getting more Daniel Jones now. So I thought he was going to be pretty owned. And right now he's coming in around 5%, just shy of that, which is a number I like a lot more than where I initially anticipated him. The one problem I have with Daniel Jones, unless you're playing him naked, or to your point with Waller, Hyatt, something like that, you're going to be holding hands with the field, because everyone who has Jones will have Wan'Dale Robinson. So even with this potential positive leverage I think you can gain, I'm still not getting a ton of Daniel Jones just because he's incredibly difficult to stack. He's not running as much as some other players on this slate, or really as much as he has in the past. His offensive line is getting him killed. And then most of these lineups that have him, I think, are also going to have Wan'Dale. So what do you do to differentiate yourself? There's ways to do it, but I would rather just play quarterbacks with higher upside.
Well, Stafford definitely is somebody that I expected to get to more of, considering I like the game environment. I like getting to the overs. I like the idea of still playing Puka Nacua, despite Cooper Kupp showing up in his life. Probably not going to be playing Cooper Kupp at that price tag here today. Got to think that he's still going to have the training wheels from the get-go out here, but just not really landing there in any kind of a pronounced way. Nobody's really getting to Joshua Dobbs, even though he's looked pretty good. I guess he's up to 5.5% against Cincinnati. I'm a little bit more inclined to be clicking on James Conner, on just Malcolm Brown by himself, but I suppose Joshua Dobbs, maybe a late slate play for me I can get behind. Anything else sub 6K that you want to point out for the people before we move on to running back?
I don't think there's too much down here. I definitely do not want to play Josh Dobbs. And otherwise, I think it's really hard to talk yourself into any of these guys. Russell Wilson's a guy I have a sprinkling of. Jets defense is terrifying, but the Denver defense themselves is awful. If they allow Zach Wilson to move the ball, maybe Denver has to throw the ball more. The skill position players, I think, in Denver are interesting. I do like Stafford a little more than you, I think, especially getting back Cooper Kupp. I think that boosts him up. Just tricky to play. Do you go up and play Nacua, who's clearly expensive? They've said Cooper Kupp's not going to have limitations, which, I mean, that could go one of two ways. You think they're lying? I don't know, maybe. Or if he plays his full role, he's underpriced. So that's tricky. You have Higbee, of course, who catches the ball and falls down every play, and Atwell kind of in the mid-price range. So he's hard to navigate, but that's a really good game environment. The way to beat Philly is through the air, especially over the middle of the field. That's where Kupp operates. So I think I have a little more interest in Stafford than you do. But yeah, this is a range that is pretty awful.
Don't get me wrong. I have interest in him. It just seems like the ownerships come up ever so slightly. And, you know, when you're building out your portfolio of lineups, it comes down to, for me, what the Sims tool is going to end up spitting out when you do 10,000 iterations of it, when you start putting together what your top lineups look like. I will say this is an interesting week for me because a lot of my highest simulated ROI lineups, they're singles. It's QB with one pass catcher, Jalen Hurts, even a Kirk Cousins with just Justin Jefferson. That's like my second highest simulated ROI lineup. I mean, we've got some interesting ways of putting together some other pieces. And because of the value, whether it's a Wan'Dale Robinson, all of the pass catchers from Detroit that we'll wade through, I think because they provide certain kinds of floor that I'm able to just get to like the Hurts plus AJ Brown. And I don't necessarily need to try to put everybody together there in the portfolio like I might have to on other weeks where you're just like, hey, those two can win the day. I'll plug in, you know, somebody who gets me 8 or 10 at the tight end position and move on with my life. We have upside in a lot of spots. Even tight end, I think, is better this week than it is other weeks because of Travis Kelce's existence. So kind of how you're going about building all your lineups. The Sims tool does a great job of helping out with that. You can sign up for that below. It is incredible between the pre-contest simulator, post-contest simulator, which I guarantee you does not get enough run. People, go back and recap your lineups. Always great to see, based on our projections, based on our tools, where you would land in terms of simulated ROI going into the contest, and then what your results are after the fact. Just to round out quarterback, did talk a little bit about Ryan Tannehill there in that Indianapolis Colts game environment there, him and Anthony Richardson. I'm okay getting over on DK as well, but for the most part, definitely kind of covered all of the main guys that we want to get to. The Daniel Jones thing, I'm really, really nauseous about. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, me too, especially if you're playing Wan'Dale and you're holding hands with the field.
Thanks. Anyway, we go to the running back position. It's getting hot in here, so let's not take off clothes, but let's talk running backs. Instead of going to the want to talk the popular bracket of them because we have Bijan Robinson, David Montgomery, Joe Mixon, all pulling 23+% ownership. Achane, I'm going to actually put him into the mix too because he's right around 20% and he's been the talk of the town with what he's been able to do and why he is like 2-3x the ownership of Raheem Mostert. I won't understand unless Mostert's in the doghouse after fumbling, you know, a little fumbleia in the last time out. But amongst these popular running backs, who's your favorite to get to in tournaments? And then is there anybody that you're going to be not full fading, but somebody that you're way lower on than the field?
Montgomery is my favorite by far. Awesome
Same.
Game environment, massive favorite. We already saw a little glimpse of the way Detroit's willing to use him without Gibbs, and it is just a monster workload for Montgomery, sitting right in that mid-price range. So if you were to like parallel him with Bijan, the salary you save by going down to Montgomery, you know, say you could only play only one of these guys. I think that's worthwhile on this slate, getting you an extra Jamar Chase, Jefferson, whatever stud may be in your lineups. David Montgomery also allows that, which is why I prefer him 1-to-1 over Bijan, along with just an insane workload and maybe the best matchup for a runner on the slate.
Probably the best matchup for a runner on a slate. And he went to Iowa State, and all things that go to Iowa State are phenomenal and beautiful inside and out. I will also say, I think Bijan Robinson is probably my least favorite of the grouping now, which I never thought I would say. I'm actually on the over of his rushing prop, which is kind of right around 79.5 now. You could have gotten a little bit lower earlier in the week, but Bijan Robinson, I think when we go into Houston, you go back home here, there are a lot of situations where Tyler Algier maybe gets worked in a little bit more. And then from a price perspective, I'm able to get the entire backfield with David Montgomery. I'm able to get the entire backfield for Joe Mixon. I'm able to get an insane game environment with the Miami pieces, specifically Raheem Mostert for my lineups. But those guys are all 1,100 and cheaper than what Bijan Robinson is. And that's just kind of, for me, been a massive change from my lineups, the way I thought that they would look on Thursday and the way they look now, just being a little bit more price sensitive. Alvin Kamara pulling quite a bit of ownership there too at 6,300. James Conner, 5,800, my priority between the two in terms of like what we're looking at for their current ownership. But lots of interesting pieces that we can get to. So let's just jump up to the 6K range again here and talk through this Miami backfield situation. Mostert, Achane, what's going on with this ownership? Can you help me decipher what I'm looking at?
Yeah, Mostert fumbled last week twice and got benched for it. I think this is a response to that. Achane had the monster game, and he's played well enough where like they can't take him off the field, but we have a very long sample of McDaniel using running backs by committee. As long as you don't think Mostert is still in the doghouse from those two fumbles, and I mean, this guy's over 30 years old. He has a very long career of not fumbling. Then this is probably much closer to a 50-50 timeshare than the ownership projections are indicating. We're on the same page as each other here, but I think this is just a response to the big game from Achane after Mostert fumbled.
Okay. And then that's a plus, because again, that's kind of the way that I was reading it. And I feel like I've seen enough stuff on Twitter where sharp players, sharp people in our industry are doing the same exact thing. And maybe this ownership is just not there, but I feel like people want to play the shiny new toy, and he's been an awesome shiny new toy, unless you played college football DFS, in which case you know him at Texas A&M, confirmed cheat code in life, was insanely expensive and paid off every single week somehow. But Achane is phenomenal. I just don't want to be playing him at this kind of ownership when I can get Mostert at one or at half or less than half of what we're looking at Achane's ownership being. So glad we're on the same page there, because thought that was something that the people wanted us to talk through. And then sub 6K, lots of different options to be getting to, whether it's Madison Pacheco in that game environment in Minnesota, something that, still carries the highest total on the slate, even though difficult for me to stack up pieces of it. Maybe you're running into the same situation. Breece Hall, 5,400. I am willing to be taking that shot, and hopefully he can play a little bit more, just a little bit more. Otherwise, sub 6K is not as intriguing because Zach Moss is off the table for me with Jonathan Taylor back. Anything sub 6K that you're really prioritizing today?
No, we're in agreement here. I'd rather get up and play the running backs at 6K or just above that. Don't love Ramondre Stevenson. He's going to be in a timeshare with Zeke for an offense that's horrible, facing a pretty good New Orleans defense. I don't buy Breece Hall getting a significant uptick in carries. That report that came out definitely wasn't they didn't report the full quote. Saleh said he wants to get Breece Hall more work, and then he immediately followed it up with, we have a lot of guys we want to get more work. So they didn't actually report the full quote. So I have a lot of reservations about Breece Hall in a three-way committee for an offense that's inept. Then you have Isaiah Pacheco. He's probably my favorite if you made me pick one. It's mostly game environment there, favorites over Minnesota. They're going to be in the dome. Pacheco, he's going to be in a committee himself. So it's like it's still a tough click for me with so many locked-in guys up top. But I'd still rank him number one of this group because of the game environment. Madison, I don't have interest in. Breida is probably my second favorite, to be honest with you. Handling a majority of the touches and snaps, and he's leveraged off Wan'Dale. So I'm probably going to rank Breida second, as crazy as that is to say.
Even just hearing it made me vomit, but
this is for leverage specifically.
I'm with you. I have 9% of him, so I'm overweight to it. So I can't say anything about it. I will say he has been stacked up with some Daniel Jones. So I think that just having him as a random guy that can go out and maybe catch a couple balls. Did have 5 for 5, 3 for 3 the last 2 weeks. San Francisco, Seattle, both awful spots here. Miami going to be an awful spot as well. But I do think you're willing to just hold your nose and try to click that button a couple of times, which is kind of what I'm also doing with one guy sub 5K. There's only one player that I have any shares of in a meaningful way. Not Jerick McKinnon, even though I bet his anytime touchdown prop nearly plus 400 over at FanDuel for anybody who cares. You got a number of pieces like Tajay Spears, who's randomly shown up from time to time in that. Ezekiel Elliott confirmed not getting starter snaps and starter workload. What the hell was that quote? But only guy I'm playing is Chuba Hubbard, 4,500. Maybe there's a chance Miles Sanders ends up getting benched here. You saw 14 carries for him. Hadn't hit more than 2 since week 1 when he had 9. Maybe you run into a spot where he ends up out on the field a little bit more, and Miles Sanders has not looked good for Carolina thus far. So 4,500, I only have 4% of him, so I'm not going out of my way to say you need to be jamming Chuba Hubbard. There you go. But sub 5K, I can at least make a case for him. Can you make a case for anybody sub 5K at the running back position?
No.
Okay. Can you make a case for a better rapper than Nelly?
Key Glock.
Guys, Owner's Box is fantastic. You guys need to be checking this out because overlay is also the name of the game. And as such, we're talking about 55% full right now over for the Owner's Box main contest. Jump in there, take advantage. It's as good as it gets for a contest in the industry right now. As I'm looking across at DraftKings and FanDuel and Yahoo and everywhere else, things are filling, and they're filling fast. They've been filled for a while. Owner's Box is putting out contests that purposely have too many entries, purposely doing it so that you can go over and try their product. And once you do, the 125K kickoff, 25K to first, literally sitting there with just over 50% of entries currently in it. There are 49 minutes to go here before lock. We have the tools over here at Stokastic with the Sims tool to be able to help you make those lineups pretty instantaneously as well. So get some positive EV lineups into your life. Fire it up at Owner's Box by signing up in the link that Jordan Klein so lovely puts in chat and down below. Take advantage of everything that they have to offer over there. They've got some lightning round stuff that you can be firing up to. It's a really cool site, fun one to check out. So I would prefer you did that than build at any other place because overlay, that is how you build and sustain your bankroll. So your first deposit, you can get up to $250 in bonus cash back for a $250 deposit. Yeah, first match deposit bonuses. That's another way that you can go about building your bankroll. And this is the largest one that I've seen in the industry for quite some time. So up to $250 that you can get back from Owner's Box. You get those awesome type of lineup builds where you get 2 quarterbacks, you get the super flex down below, like it's college football DFS, still the best way to build, in my opinion. And you get to fire it up over at Owner's Box. So take advantage of that. Sign up at the link. Great stuff from them. And thank you for their sponsorship of our lovely little program here at the Stokastic YouTube channel. All right, my friend, we're making really, really good time, almost like too good a time where we should like slowly talk about wide receiver. But I think running back was pretty clear cut. Some tournament shots that you're kind of able to take amongst these ranges, but with only 10 games, this was always going to fly a little bit quicker. I'm using the top stacks tool over at Stokastic to really inform me for my decisions when it comes to who I want to be getting to the most. And as I'm rebuilding my lineups here, because we have plenty of time, one team that we didn't really talk about a ton is the Miami Dolphins. Talked about them at the running back position, but we've got them way up, highest rated team in our top stacks tool right now. That makes me look at the top of the board here with Tyreek Hill, with Justin Jefferson, with these guys at the top end. Cooper Kupp going to be off the board for me here. I'm not going to be playing him his first week back. A.J. Brown I do like, but between Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill, I'm getting to more Tyreek Hill. How about you?
Same. It's not by a wide margin. I'm trying to play just a lot of the studs in general with their quarterbacks. He fits that bill very well. The only issue I have with Tyreek Hill is you're probably running Wan'Dale Robinson on the other side. If you're running a run back, which I don't think you need to, New York could get absolutely smoked in this game. So that's something I actually like doing with Miami is just using Tua, using your choice of Tyreek, Waddle. I prefer Tyreek, and then just not having a New York run back, or maybe using like a Breida to be contrarian. This is for large fields.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's some doubles. The ultimate leverage is playing the Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, which before the season started, that wouldn't have even registered that would be something that would seem contrarian. Like, this is wild to me that we can play a Tua double with Hill and Waddle, and it's a contrarian way to go building about this slate. I do think Durham Smythe, coming off of being mega chalk here, disappointing everybody in that week 3 blowout against Denver. Saw him get back involved, 10.3 yards per target, 4 catches against Buffalo in the blowout loss there. He's yet to score a touchdown on the season at a flat 3K. I like involving him in some of those doubles with Hill as well. But Hill, because of me playing Tua, not really getting to as much Cousins here this week. Definitely going to be my preferred way of going to the top of the board here at wide receiver. Not that Justin Jefferson isn't an absolute smash because, he's my favorite player in the NFL. It's just, this is DFS and you got to play it by the numbers. And the numbers are indicating I should be playing more Tyreek Hill than Justin Jefferson. But now is where it gets very fascinating because A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase, they are phenomenal plays for a lot cheaper than Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson. I'm preferring Jamar Chase, even though I am more exposed to the Philadelphia, Los Angeles game environment. And this just comes down to, I think he gets a ton of work in a must-win game here for the Bengals. If you do get Joe Burrow another week healthier, I just think it's such a clear-cut play. I like Irv Smith as a contrarian type piece to get to on the Cincinnati side as well. But, we'll see how that ends up panning out for him. I'm sure that'll be great. But at the upper end of the 7K range here, and then A.J. Brown, do you have anybody that's showing up a bunch in your lineups, Matt?
Yeah, it's hard to get off Jamar Chase, even with some pretty gnarly projected ownership. Without T. Higgins, he's going to have a monster target share. Matchup is, again, arguably the easiest he'll see all year long. And hopefully they can keep Joe Burrow clean because of that. I don't have as much of the pure stack, but I have a lot of Jamar Chase just in one-offs or skinny stacks using maybe like a Marquise Brown or a Zach Ertz on the other side. I agree with you on Philly. I'm going to be overweight to both Smith and A.J. Brown. A lot of that's just coming from being overweight to Hurts and playing them in stacks together. But they're 2 elite receivers who just don't have the same kind of volume as a guy like Jamar Chase up at the top of the position. I don't have any Puka Nacua, but we didn't talk about Kupp. I'll be playing a fair amount of Kupp. There's a lot of fragility in his projection. So you mentioned the Sims earlier. Luckily, there's tools where you can boost players if you think there's some fragility in projections, which I happen to. He was the best receiver in the NFL before he got hurt, with the best role. Now he's coming back, and everyone's just assuming that a 5th-round rookie is going to play ahead of Cooper Kupp, which I am a little hesitant to believe. So anytime you can get Cooper Kupp low owned, I'm going to play him. Nacua, I think he's the player that's overpriced because of that. Otherwise, there's not really anyone else in this range, I guess, to mention. I like Waddle as a contrarian pivot off Tyreek Hill. But yeah, I think that's just about everybody. It's a very short range today with Amon-Ra out.
Interesting. Nobody's talked about Lamar. Yeah, no, Lamar is somebody that definitely I heard on the previous show before us. That was something that Spags had brought up. Thought it was a pretty interesting point. I mean, anytime you see Lamar Jackson at 1%, 2%, talking about it on Thursday's matchup show with Loughy as well. Never going to be a bad situation. For me, it's just you're playing him with Andrews, and then you're trying to hope that thing just nukes it somehow and fill in the rest of your lineups with studs. But going to be an interesting path trying to take Lamar Jackson to the promised land against Pittsburgh. Don't really know what else to add there to that one. If you have questions, we're going to have plenty of times for questions. Haven't seen any super chats come along here yet either. So if you guys want to fire those up, more than happy to answer those because we will have tons and tons of time here on this program. Getting to some of these more popular wide receivers that are on the cheap end. We have a Marquise Brown 5K, a Garrett Wilson 6K. Garrett Wilson being the 6th most popular wide receiver on a 10-game slate is not something that I had in the cards during the Zach Wilson era, but here we are. He looked competent. I'm actually trying to back him in some single game parlay type stuff, but not going to be playing him as much in DFS. That's for sure. Khalif Raymond here to the top. I guess we can just open up the range of all the 5, 6K guys before we get to those Detroit cheapies and try to parse through what we want to do with Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond. But who in the 5, 6K range are you landing on the most, Matt?
I don't love this range. So Marquise Brown's going to be pretty chalky, which is terrifying, but he has a good role. You're just playing a guy attached to Josh Dobbs, which I think is really scary. So I'm going to come in underweight on Marquise. You should talk. The dog's barking at my house.
Oh, that's adorable. My dog's just sleeping over in the corner. He's having a great day. Duke, just chilling, living the life, living the yard life. But yeah, you handle your business. I get dog dad duties. But as I'm looking at the 5-6K range, I'm kind of on board with Matt, where there's a lot of guys that I'm trying to get away from some of the popularity. One of them being Garrett Wilson. This Denver secondary has not been ideal. Marquise Brown, I do like in the Cincinnati side. I think that's a great mini, him and Jamar Chase. It's going to be a very popular mini, but I think rightfully so, based on what we've seen from those secondaries. I think where I start to get a little bit uncomfortable is how much George Pickens was showing up in my lineups. I'm trying to reduce that down. He's at 10.1%. I don't think we've seen really anything from Kenny Pickett. We had that massive week 2 game where 10 targets, he turned 4 catches into 127 at a tutty, but that was the exception to the rule, it would seem. So 5,200, I don't hate if people are trying to make that a thing, but I'm far more inclined to be playing Michael Pittman, pulling 8.9% ownership here. I think him, Anthony Richardson, that's one of my favorite single stacks that you have on this entire slate. I have a feeling Matt is going to be behind that one as well because, well, you have a lot of Anthony Richardson too, don't you, Matt?
I do. Should be clear now. I texted my roommate to hopefully bring the dog outside. We'll see. But yeah, to go back to this 5-6K range.
I was going to say the landlord banging. That's exactly where my mind went immediately, Jordan Klein. Real ones in the chat. You know what we're talking about. Hey, keep it quiet down there.
Yeah, there's people over at my house, so the dog just gets worked up. Anyway, you're right on Pittman. Have a ton of him. It's largely because playing Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
Going down, if Garrett Wilson's going to come in with any kind of ownership, I'm just going to basically blindly fade. Don't have a lot of this game anyway, so it's kind of like, am I playing Garrett Wilson as a one-off? Like, how likely is it that Garrett Wilson by himself puts up a better price-adjusted score than some of the value guys or some of the guys at the top? So there's opportunity cost with him, in my opinion. I'd rather find my way to a stars and scrubs build than play a guy like Garrett Wilson. Hopkins, I have a lot of. That's, again, an attachment to the Anthony Richardson stuff. If you're looking for a run back, he very clearly stands out with no Treylon Burks. I have some of this Houston game. So Nico Collins is a player that's sprinkled into my lineups. Aside from that, though, going down to the low 5Ks, not a ton of interest. I briefly touched on Marquise Brown. Want to come in underweight to a guy attached to Josh Dobbs. Like Zach Wilson and Josh Dobbs as the signal callers for 2 of the most owned receivers on the slate is horrifying. They could bury me for sure based on their volume. But again, I think stars and scrubs is the way I'm going to be approaching this slate, with the exception to the couple guys I have that are stacked in that indie game.
You ready to play a little FMK, little F, Marry, Kill? You ready?
Sure.
Wan'Dale Robinson, Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond.
Kill Khalif Raymond. That's really it.
So we're killing Khalif Raymond right from the get-go. You've got murder in your eyes. Tell the people why Khalif Raymond's a bad play today.
Well, Wan'Dale has one of the best target rates,
correct,
even though he's not playing every single snap. And that game environment's awesome. He also runs routes underneath, so if Daniel Jones gets killed, it doesn't really affect him. And then Reynolds is a full-time player, and I'm not sure Khalif Raymond is. Reynolds already playing every single snap. Raymond's a gadget guy, whereas Reynolds is going to be out there every snap. So to break down Detroit without Amon-Ra St. Brown, Reynolds will play every snap. Then you've got this log jam of Marvin Jones, Khalif Raymond, and Jamison Williams on the snap count. These guys could all just straight up rotate. Like Khalif Raymond plays in the slot, well, so does Marvin Jones. And regardless of what you think of Marvin Jones, I happen to think he's awful and he's old. Detroit doesn't agree, and he plays. Those snaps are going to come at the expense of somebody. Then if you think, all right, maybe Marvin Jones plays in the slot and Khalif Raymond plays outside and has that field stretching role, that's exactly what Jamison Williams does. There's a decent chance that the snap share doesn't come in where you think it will on Khalif Raymond. And with that ownership, I'll just find the extra salary and find my way to Reynolds for a guy in that game environment.
Yeah, I think Wan'Dale is definitely the one that we are making sweet, sweet love to. We're going to play anything that isn't Nelly in the background, and we're going to really have ourselves a night. Probably going to be marrying Josh Reynolds because I think he's got the secure role of anybody there at Detroit. I'm completely on board with you. I'm surprised to hear you just wanting to murder Khalif Raymond, though. That's not very nice of you. I think you need to really check yourself before you wreck yourself. Do you have any
Are you murdering someone else before you call me out?
Definitely, I think between the three, he probably goes into it, but you were steadfast on that. I think there's got to be a price sensitivity we have too. And He's the cheapie. He's the guy that,
Wandale's
makes things
cheaper.
work at 3,300. Exactly. Wandale is cheaper, and I prefer his role as well. I prefer that game. Khalif Raymond, 3,300. I don't mind it. Do you have lineups where you're going to play Raymond and Reynolds together?
Let me look. I have some of them. So
because I'm not completely
imagine
against
yes.
it. If it weren't for the fact that they were both cheap, I would have a problem with it. But 10 and 12 to give you access to the top tier, like that's not the worst thing that can happen. I will say, if I'm hand building, definitely not going to be something that I'm naturally getting to. But going through the Sims tool here, I'm seeing if I have any specifically as well. Oh my God, Zach Wilson, now my highest simulated ROI lineup. I need help. I can't do that.
Yeah, I don't know if you should say that on air. You might get the Sims questioned if you say Zach Wilson highest ROI.
Yeah, no, well, I'm tweaking some stuff on my end with the ROI boosts, trying to make things work. And Breece Hall is he's breaking shit for me. So because that's something that wasn't organically showing up, and I am jamming it. I also think this is a phenomenal late swap. Just to kind of talk the overarching strategy of this entire slate. You have 6 games that you're going to get all the information for. There are so many pronounced pieces of chalk that exist in this late window, and there are great game environments. Philly and Los Angeles, Kansas City, Minnesota, both 50-plus totals, both lots of ways to get there. Cincinnati, Arizona, 2 of the chalkiest pieces at the wide receiver position. Chase being the most expensive, most chalky. And then Malcolm Brown, who's top 15 in the NFL at yards per route run. Pretty crazy stuff to see his role in this offense, even with Dobbs at the helm. So there's some ways to get away from pronounced chalk there. And I think one of the main things is just looking at this Jets-Denver game. Nobody's really clicking on Denver whatsoever. I think that there's some reasons to get to the Jerry Judys, the Cortland Suttons, pieces of that offense whatsoever. You have Jordan McLaughlin, I will remember you. Javonte Williams in the event that something happens with him. Because again, he's a true game time decision. I think Denver could be a very interesting part of this slate in the event that you're looking at late swap, and you always should be looking at late swap. But anything else to add to that? Because I know that's something that we love to cover on this program.
No, it's well said. You should definitely be doing that. And I mean, there's plenty of pivot spots. It's not your normal week with less games in the morning. So yeah, nothing really else to add.
Khalif Raymond just showed up 78% of the time when I ran an unencumbered sim. Holy my God. I do have 71% David Montgomery. I'm sure that's going to go well.
He's a wagon. Yeah, you should be happy.
He's a wagon. Dude, Iowa State, we're all wagons. We still use wagons. That's what it is.
That team is awesome. They're definitely one of us. All your players suspended for gambling. Truly one of us.
I don't have a joke for that.
Hey, you won last night, didn't you? Did you beat TCU?
We did. We actually put the smackdown on TCU. I was a little surprised.
TCU is way overrated in the market. They have been since they were minus 21 against Colorado in week 1.
Mm-hmm. We got Shakira out there, Buffalo Bills. Khalil Shakir, nice catch there. 3rd and 1, 18-7 Jaguars. Yes, I'm watching football simultaneously. What are you going to do about it, Jordan Quine? Oh, something you can do about everything if you're in one of these great states? We're talking, well, no, it's not Arizona. That's a lie. Let me double check. Might want to, make sure that I have this pulled up here ahead of time. Here it is. Colorado, Iowa, the great state of Iowa, of course, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, and now Kentucky. It's Bet365. Damn good find. Why don't I sock it to you one more time? Get low in the video description box below is what I'm getting at. You sign down there, bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets. First bet safety net also available to you, up to $1,000 in bonus bets. Great deals from Bet365. So I repeat, if you're in one of the states, Colorado, Iowa, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or Kentucky, take advantage of this offer because Bet365, one of the most reputable sports books internationally, not just here over in the States as they're starting to get their brand out there for the people. But some of the best lines in the MLB streets, where I'm going to have an MLB video that I put out on my Twitter at Eric Lindquist today, covering the 2 games we got going here. Come on, Twins, please. Don't break my heart like this. But either way, Bet365 gives you some great ammunition. Just betting $5 and turning it into $150 in bonus bets. What could be better than do you like my sweater? Head to that comment section below. Sign up. It's only if you're 21 and over, 18 and over in the state of Kentucky. And if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Alrighty, y'all, back to wide receivers. Any low-owned tournament darts that you are forcing into your lineups that we have yet to discuss, Matt Gajewski?
Wow, this is a great question. Yeah, there's a lot. So I'll run through a couple of them.
I was going to say, just go ahead
and then tell
up.
me, I want to hear if you agree with some of these guys.
Okay.
I think Mahomes specifically gambling on the rotation of receivers behind Travis Kelce is going to be a lot of fun today. Rashee Rice, I think, is the most interesting for me. Rookie seeing an elevated snap share for the team. You've got Justin Watson leading the team in snaps recently, but he's more... I don't know if the guy's just like an excellent blocker or something, because he doesn't really offer much as a pass catcher. They don't throw to him a ton.
He's going to be the next Zay Jones, where he was a really good teammate and tries really hard, and then all of a sudden he's got a pronounced role, but then it's Justin Watson. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think for me, it's Rashee Rice. This is not Kelce, of course. Rashee Rice 1, Sky Moore 2, who's been terrible, but he plays a lot. And then I think it's still probably Kadarius. They've been I hate his price. I'm not playing him. I'm sticking with just Rice and Moore. But Kadarius, at what point do his snaps and routes they have to rise? He had the bad game 1, but I mean, all of these receivers in Kansas City are horrible. So I don't know. I think he's worth, if you're sprinkling a 150, 1 or 2 lineups perhaps. But yeah, I want to play Mahomes with some of these guys that are contrarian. Thielen, I think, is going a little overlooked now in a game environment that's interesting to me against Detroit. Who do you run back on the Detroit side? If you're not playing a Miles Sanders or Chuba Hubbard, I think Thielen is very clearly the target you want to get to. Still going to be getting some contrarian Houston guys. Robert Woods, Tank Dell in the mix. We didn't talk Tyler Boyd. So
that's who I wanted to talk about. How are people not clicking on Tyler Boyd ad nauseum at 4,500 here with no T. Higgins? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. He is by far my favorite sub 5K wide receiver, not named Wan'Dale Robinson.
So let me ask you this. Do you have any Trenton Irwin in your life?
I do have Trenton Irwin. So you got to be a little bit careful, because I did run some sims here where you're able to change your stack exposures. And I had a little bit too much QB3 showing up. And it was Trenton Irwin out there in, Australia, doing his thing. That's what I imagine he sounds like. I don't think he's related. But Trenton Irwin, I like as just a contrarian piece, more for the late slate. I am playing Tyler Boyd because we've just seen so many times you remove one piece from this offense, whether it was Chase or Higgins, you play the other two. Tyler Boyd's going to be on the field almost 100% of the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's going. I'm going to assume he's playing over Irwin. So yeah, Tyler.
Why wouldn't we just play tons of Tyler Boyd?
Well, the offense has struggled. Tyler Boyd has been in this position many times, and a lot of them he hasn't performed. So there's a small sample of him sucking when one of these guys is out. But he's also a former 1,000-yard receiver. I think he's actually a pretty good player. So I'm going to chalk up some of those down performances to variance. And I mean, he's still going to be behind Chase. Chase will be the alpha here, but there's not really much more you can ask for talent-wise, price-wise, and role-wise on a slate like this at a cheap price. So yeah, I love Boyd too. I'll also sprinkle Irwin just on the off chance he's the full-time wide receiver 3, but I would much rather get up to Boyd if you can find the salary. But yeah, this is an interesting range. I think Downs is a good play down here. Love him attached to Richardson. And then Michael Wilson, I'll go back to him even after the 2 touchdowns, not getting owned. He's the only receiver on Arizona who's taller than 5'6". So he plays in every down role. He's just a different body on the field as that sort of possession perimeter receiver. Marquise Brown and Rondale Moore both tiny. So Wilson's still interesting to me at a very cheap price, even after he showed pretty good involvement here. Anyone else you have pieces of?
No, but I'm glad you brought up Rondale Moore because he's 3,200, and I think he's actually a piece of leverage. I get it. Purdue's finest, Rondale Moore, has been a disappointment in the NFL, but there are so many opportunities where he'll get some kind of a swing pass or he'll get a handoff and just take it to the house because he is very elusive in space. The problem is he's not a great route runner. The other problem is it's hard to target a guy who's that small, but handing him off the football has definitely paid dividends at times. You saw that against Dallas. That was a really effective thing that they threw in. They gave him, I believe, 3 or 4 rushing attempts there. He's not getting targeted a lot. And against a team like San Francisco last week, he's just going to get beat down by bigger, stronger corners that just, it's going to be hard for him. But this Cincinnati defense is not good. You also get after them on the ground in a pretty pronounced way. I don't hate a 3,200 Rondale Moore as a super contrarian piece of this slate.
I've got a little bit of him. Do you have any Nick Westbrook-Ikhine?
I thought about it, and then I decided I didn't want to be a miserable person. I've played him more than most. Westbrook-Ikhine, yeah. Westbrook-Ikhine last season, there were a couple of games he had some decent enough rapport, and obviously there's no Hopkins, and Treylon Burks was kind of whatever at that point in time, hurt for a little bit of the season. I didn't completely hate it. I have none today. I don't think you need him. Are you sprinkling him into Tannehill's stacks or into your, is he like a run back for your Richardson?
Yeah, and a few. It's exclusively the Richardson stuff. So that's why I got him.
So now my number one simulated ROI lineup. See, this is important to me. Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase. I'm in love with that so much. Throwing in some Tyler Boyd, I'm happy with that as a QB3. Let's get down with our bad selves. Anything else at wide receiver before we move to tight end?
Yeah, I had another question I want to ask you about.
Yes.
The Minnesota receivers or pass catchers?
Answer is no.
Okay.
TJ Hawkinson, we'll talk about him at tight end. I'm fine with that. Jordan Addison, I lost my fantasy matchup in my 1K league by 0.6 last week, and I got a 0 from Jordan Addison. So we're not on speaking terms this week.
I'm going back in sprinkles of a 150 set because of that game environment. That's all I'll say. Agree with you. Don't know why he's not playing over KJ Osborne, but that's the world we live in.
I want to live in a different world, Matt.
Come to the college football streets.
Buddy, I give me more time in the day and I will. Actually, there's like this little section when it goes to ALCS and NLCS. I think next week college football might get a little bit weird for me. I think I might have to get a little bit weird next week.
Dude, next week is sick. You're a Ducks fan, right? They play Washington.
Yeah, I'm married into a Ducks family. So I'm an Iowa State boy. Family's in Oregon, or my wife's side is a big diehard Oregon side. Even though like both her parents went to UCLA. So I don't quite understand that one, but.
Well, big week for you. Hopefully, your married into family is going to be watching that game. You can watch.
Hopefully. Stephon Diggs now up to 109 yards and a tutty. So decent enough stat line from that guy yet again. Calvin Ridley was in concussion protocol. I don't know if he got back into that football game, but 18-13. You guys aren't watching the game here. You're hanging out with us, building out your lineups. 24 minutes to go. Let's check in on Owner's Box, shall we, Jordan Klein? Let's do a little bit of a update here on the people. Again, Owner's Box, $250. You're going to get up to a $250 first match deposit bonus. That is great stuff over at Owner's Box. You can do the college football type builds. That's what you're really looking at, is getting some super flex in your life. We got 5680, so 57% full. It's finally over 55% full, but gigantic opportunity that you have there to go get yourself some overlay. Go get overlay when it's available to you, because it is almost never available to you anymore. 3, 4, 5 years ago when sites were trying this out, telling you, it's just gone away because those sites, whether it's DraftKings FanDuel, they're filling immediately now. Owner's Box wants you to try out their product, see how much better it is than the industry standard, and hey, overlays are a really great way to do that, in my opinion. So sign up, check out Owner's Box. We continue on to the tight end position, my friend. Let's go to the top end. Travis Kelce. How much Travis Kelce is too much Travis Kelce at the top this week?
Man, that's a great question. I'm glad you framed it that way, because he's on an island, unless you think like maybe Laporta is getting somewhat close price adjusted to keeping up with Kelce. But when Kelce has one of these nuclear games, he separates you so much from the position. He's still my highest owned tight end. I'm getting him at 25%. Are you higher or lower?
I'm pulling it up. I am at 22%, so I'm higher.
Okay. We're in the same range. But yeah, I mean, to get into it briefly, Mahomes, solid price adjusted play. The only player pass catching wise that's on the field almost every snap is Kelce. Locked in target share, talented player. Easy matchup against Minnesota in the best game environment on the slate. So it's like, if you can find the salary to Kelce, amazing. The only thing is he leads you to a different roster construction. You got to punt. So maybe like if you're building 150, you definitely shouldn't like put your chips in on Kelce by any means, but you can make pretty strong arguments going down to Laporta. You'll be able to get other studs. You can make strong arguments for punting entirely. Just kind of depends on how you want to build your construction. And is Kelce your preferred stud? If he is, no issues.
Yeah, it's tough to imagine building out 150 and not having access to the guy that we know can nuke a slate. I'm basically holding hands with the field. I thought I was going to end up jamming Sam Laporta, and surely enough, that seems to be what's happening. 32% of him. I think part of what you should be paying attention to in your lineups is like Khalif Raymond, Josh Reynolds, Sam Laporta. You have 3 Detroit pass catchers. What are the chances that all 3 smash this slate? Well, like I'm putting it as a pretty low number. I'm going to make a rule after the fact. I'm going to upload my lineups into Cruncher here after I finish with the Sims. And I'm going to basically have a rule where I'm going to just remove lineups that have all 3 of them and just not enter them. I'm going to have a little bit of a process on the back end after the Sims, because like I think Sam Laporta is my favorite pass catcher to get to from the Detroit side, although because there's only one player at one position at tight end, it's not as exclusive, or sorry, it's more exclusive than playing, you know, the wide receiver position where you can mix and match so many things. We talked about a Rondale Moore for cheap, Wan'Dale Robinson, somebody who's far more popular, but saying they just give you those different type of builds off of the Khalif Raymonds. I think Sam Laporta 5K, 30% of him. That seems like a pretty decent stand to make today.
Yep, love Laporta. He'll be my second most owned tight end. 100% agree with you on the Detroit chalk. I'm not playing, or I guess I should say I'm limiting. I'm going to try this to say this as clear as I can.
I'm ready.
I'm limiting the Detroit pass catchers to just 1 unless they're stacked with Goff.
Okay.
And the only Detroit players I'm comfortable playing like 2 one-offs of, Laporta and Montgomery. I do not want like a Raymond Montgomery or a Reynolds Montgomery. I think you're running into a lot of duplication there. And the difference, Laporta plays an extremely weak position. So the chances he like puts up a score that you need much higher than like Raymond or Reynolds doing it, in my opinion.
Fix one thing. Jalen Waddle, 1% Jalen Waddle. Daddy needs more than 1% Jalen Waddle in his life. Daddy, that's what Daddy needs today. That is what it is. Oh my goodness, Derrick Henry now starting to show up a little bit more. Derrick Henry, that worked out well last week, everybody.
Vintage Derrick Henry, that was nice.
Vintage Derrick Henry. I said, don't be scared, mini-me. Things won't get weird, but they got a little bit weird because he's throwing jump passes again. It's beautiful. But let's get ourselves rounded out with this tight end position, because lots of cheapies that we can take shots on, my friend. And I guess TJ Hawkins and Mark Andrews, they're fine as well. They're pretty low owned, pretty easy to kind of incorporate them into stacks. I have some Darren Waller with my disgusting Daniel Jones lineups. Don't feel good about it. Don't feel good about it at all. But sub 5K, lots of opportunities to roster the Zach Ertzes of the world, the Dallas Goederts, if you think he has a pulse in the world, Tyler Higbee, if you're looking at Matt Stafford sub 6K, lots of pieces that are complementary seconds in your double stacks. Who are your favorites to get to, Matt?
I like Higbee a lot.
Interesting.
Excuse me. I meant to say Goddard. I do not like Higbee a lot.
Okay. I threw out the interesting in like I don't like Higbee, but do tell me.
Yes. Excuse me. I do not like Higbee. He's actually pretty owned for this game. I like Goddard.
Coach speak going for Dallas Goedert, by the way.
Classic coach speak. Here we go again. But yeah, Goddard, I mean, aside from coach speak, we have a long sample of him being a very talented tight end in the NFL. And Philly operates almost like San Francisco to a degree, where we've got studs, A.J. Brown, stud Devontae Smith. Generally speaking, they don't all have amazing games. They ebb and flow a little bit, which is why sometimes they all come in under-owned. Goddard's now cheap as well, 4,200 for him. He's no longer like the 5.5K. So, I mean, you're only sacrificing, $1,000 off some of the cheap chalk to get up to him in an awesome game environment too, which is something I really like with Goddard. Otherwise, man, I do not like Higbee. The Ertz chalk I will never eat unless it's specifically stacked in that Cincinnati game. I'm not playing a one-off Zach Ertz at this point. He's just so dusty. And even if he gets a 10-target game, you're live to end up with 6 for 22 and no scores. So, I mean, there's so many good pivots. You could go to Chico Conquo in an awesome game environment. Irv Smith, I think, is excellent pivot off some of the cheaper Cincinnati guys. Boyd is not particularly owned, but if you want to play another player in a stack with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, I never hate adding the tight end onto those. Granson on the other side of that Tennessee game, he makes sense in your Richardson lineups. I like going all the way down to Dalton Schultz. I don't see any difference. Dalton Schultz has a pretty good opportunity. He's on the field a lot, and CJ Stroud is balling. Those of you that were lucky enough to get Nico Collins right last week, that game could happen with Schultz at any point in time. Game environment's not good, but love playing Schultz as a 3% guy. Smythe at 3% after he was complete chalk and buried everybody. I love cheap tight end, not named Zach Ertz.
Smythe Meos, Mighty Smither. Name that movie.
Dude, I have no idea what that
I know.
is.
I just did it because I wanted to throw you under the bus like you did with Nelly.
Nelly deserves it.
No, he does not. Country grammar
music. Country grammar.
How about it's all in my head?
What are you at a middle school dance? You can't tell me like you're listening to Nelly in the shower or something like that. Like I refuse to believe anybody does that. Or like you're in the car and Nelly comes on shuffle and you're excited. I refuse to.
So my favorite tight end to get to on the bottom end that nobody's playing is Irv Smith Jr. Why is nobody playing Irv Smith Jr.? He gets back into the offense. There's absolutely nobody else to throw the football to. You got Jamar Chase, made the case for Tyler Boyd, but I'm also going to make the case for Irv Smith in these Joe Burrow doubles. Again, I repeat, why nobody's going to play Irv Smith? That's cool. I'm going to do it. How about you?
I love Irv Smith. I 100% agree with you. Again, if you're playing Chase, Burrow, one thing I like to do anyway is just add in a tight end to your stack. That's how you can double stack. And Irv Smith, he's a good receiving tight end. And he's competing with Drew Sample and Tanner Hudson, preseason hero. But, I mean, he should play a ton. What are you laughing about?
Chat's a beautiful place. Chat is a beautiful, beautiful place. You guys are lovely. Thank you.
I love the chat too. Thank you guys.
Connor McGinnity, Eric listening to Hot in Here whilst taking a steamy shower has happened at least once. When I read whilst, I ROFL'd. And that was the funniest thing that I've ever read in my life. Anyway, cool. Let's get to defense, shall we? And get ourselves the heck up out of here.
One tight end question?
You can ask me one.
Do you have any Pittsburgh guys?
No, I thought about it, and then I kept on living my life.
So I think this is a volatile situation.
2,500 for all of them. I get
Darnell
it.
Washington is a wagon. I would not be surprised.
Where did he go?
Darnell, Georgia.
Oh, then he is a wagon. All right. I'm going to go to the Sims. I wonder out of my 10,000 lineups that I made, if Darnell Washington showed up in any of them. So I don't even think I probably have access to be able to get to him.
Well, so here's the thing is this is a really hard situation to project.
I have 0.8% of him in 210 lineups. So
Pittsburgh might use more 12 personnel. Like their other tight end, Connor Hayward's like an H-back. So I don't know. I think in just pure blocking situations, Darnell's out there. He's also like the most athletic tight end in the NFL. He's like up there with Pitts. If Pitts weighed 30 more pounds. So, I mean, like, I don't know. I'm sprinkling Darnell in the off chance he has this full-time role, but really volatile situation. Anyway, I wanted to get your take on that if you had a different read or something.
No, I'm an idiot. I have no idea. I'll pull it up here.
It's not true.
Let me throw it in here. Cool. I have 0.8%. I have one share of him, and I'm not even going to say this lineup out loud because I feel like this is a sacrifice to the gods. Like this lineup had Zach Wilson in it, so we're just removing this from the portfolio. I'm going to get a different Darnell Washington lineup and just add that for the hell of it, just for the absolute LOL jokes of it. But yeah, otherwise we should get ourselves over to defense to get the people a little bit of information on the way out. Hit that like button for us. We had basically 3,000 people hanging out with us the entire show, front to back. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully you can smash that like button as a small token of your appreciation for hanging out with us. Jordan Klein also is calling this like my best show ever, which is terrifying. I think I don't know. Makes me a little bit nervous about like my other shows. But here's the thing: Matt Gajewski, Eric Lindquist shows are different than any other Eric Lindquist shows because, like, legitimately, you complete me. You complete me.
Do you know that from movie? A movie?
It is.
Is it the Wizard of Oz?
To defense we go. Lots of popular options, lots of pieces that we can get to. On the bottom end, of course, Titans going up against the Colts. Although you have a lot of Colts, doubt you're getting to as much of them as the field is. Who is your highest owned defense on the day? Matthew, I don't know movies. Gajewski.
You're 100% correct on that take. Highest on defense, Saints.
There it is.
It's very even, though, as usual. Not trying to have any defenses make or break my day. But to get into the football takes with the defenses, what the people want, you've got Mac Jones on the other side of a pretty good New Orleans defense. And I prefer them straight up over New England, who's down Matt Judon and Christian Gonzalez. So I think at the very least are two of their top 3 defenders.
Christian Gonzalez, quack, quack.
Yeah, he's sick. He's really good.
So fucking good. I'm so sad that he tore his labrum because the people need to know about him because he is hashtag special.
He's really good. So that is very sad. I hate when that happens to good players. But otherwise, I'm fine with the Titans. You were spot on why I don't have as much of them. Playing a lot of Anthony Richardson the other time. The case for the Titans defense, they're very cheap. Richardson's a rookie signal caller. You could see mistakes at any point in time. Denver, I think, is fine if you're paying up a little bit, playing Zach Wilson. Denver's been horrific themselves, but Zach Wilson is the gift that keeps on giving. And then I'm playing some defenses in that Baltimore-Pittsburgh game, just a really low-scoring game environment overall. Otherwise, that's a majority of them. I have some Kansas City playing Kirk Cousins. Anything I missed?
New England going up against New Orleans. Derek Carr might not have a shoulder. I don't know what's going on and why he's playing fucking football today, but he is. That's stupid. So he's going to dump it off to Kamara 13 times again and get 20 yards out of it. So that'll be enjoyable to watch. But New England, I have to still fire them up. And then the other one, nobody's going to play the Lions defense. And I'm somebody holding a +10 Carolina ticket. More than happy to. But come on. We're talking about Carolina here with Bryce Young, who hasn't really shown anything on the road. This is just one of those classic, like Detroit gets after the quarterback, creates a couple scoop and scores, gets after it. They're 3,800. They're really low owned. It's one of those things where people just kind of don't go up to the top of defense because they don't allow you a bunch of salary savings. But we have so many salary savers we're already mixing into lineups. Now, why wouldn't you go up and try to spend for a Lions defense or maybe a Ravens defense against Pittsburgh and the corpse of Kenny Pickett? Missing Jordan Addison in his life back in the Pitt days. Those were good days, though. Those were really good days.
Yeah, it's tough out there for Pitt these days. But yeah, in the same vein, I don't hate Miami against that atrocious New York offensive line. If you have the salary and you can't seem to find a place to use it, I'm completely fine. And generally speaking, some of the 2v2s I don't love. Like in some of the lineups I was wrestling with earlier, it's like, all right, you've got New England defense and you've got, I don't know, like Marquise Brown. Like, do I really want to make a 2v2 off that? And I think in some situations it makes sense where you can go down to like, I don't know, Michael Wilson and then play an elite defense where you end up with a lot of leverage that way. And I don't think you're sacrificing too much in projection.
All right, we start with Hugo. We got Hugo here. We got some super chats to catch up on for the people here as we're winding down our lovely show here. Where is Hugo? I don't see one there. Send that to me, Jordan Klein. But I've got the fan funding thing pulled up. Eric Johnson, $4.99. Cousins, Jefferson, or Hurts, AJ for FanDuel GPP. I strongly prefer the Hurts AJ side of that one for FanDuel.
Agreed.
Yeah, FanDuel, I want all the touchdowns and all the land. AJ Brown, higher touchdown equity for me, even though I think Sportsbooks is actually the inverse. I don't necessarily agree with that for a number of different reasons. We got M. Wilson Love. Thanks, fellas. Always appreciated. That's from Hugo, member for 30 months. Appreciate you, my guy. Yes, we have some Michael Wilson Love here on this program.
Yeah, he's a wagon. And he's different than all of the other Arizona receivers. And he's cheap. And he's leveraged off the other cheap guys like Wandale. And he's not owned.
He's built more like Josh and less like Adam, if you get my drift. Mr. Cool Cam, 97, $2. Favorite single entry quarterback for FanDuel single entry, Jalen Hurts, not close.
Agreed. Love Jalen Hurts. Playing a lot of him.
That does it. That does it for the super chats. I think we got everything all caught up. Very, very excited. Very, very stoked here. Smash that like button again. We've got a couple of minutes here, 6:42. How you doing with your lineups, Matt? Always want to double check it and make sure you got everything in the way you want it.
I did a good job after learning my lesson in previous weeks and struggling down to the wire. So I don't think I'm going to change anything in the last 7 minutes. How are you doing?
Down to the wire. I wanted water. Walk through. That's John Mayer. Do you hate John Mayer too?
He's just not really like the kind of music I listen to, but respect the game and the talent, I guess.
Yeah, well, if you need to see him with the Grateful Dead. Dead and Company, him with Dead and Company, saw him at Dodger Stadium. Let me tell you, it was a vibe. It was a vibe.
It sounds sick. Do you have any Gus Edwards?
No. Justice Hill's active.
I know, that's why I was asking.
Yeah. I'm not going to do it.
Okay, me either.
I'm glad that, again, we're pretty locked in on this slate where I think, for me, I'll double check. Yeah, I have 0% Gus Edwards. So now that you said that, with 6 minutes left, I'm like, oh my God, did I do something wrong?
Do you have any Ramondre?
Oh, Stephon Diggs fumble. There it is. Game. Jacksonville money line comes through for me. What were you saying?
Congratulations, you're rich.
Thank you. Hey, turn 100 into 205. Yeah, plus 205 is the final number. But anyway, what were we saying?
Well, we got a couple super chats. I was going to ask you about.
Oh, more super chats. Nicholas Lynn, $5. Who is the best running back play under 5%? Ooh. Oh. I'm not going to say Chuba Hubbard because I'm not that sick of a person, but I'm going to pull up current ownership here. I'm going to go to the running back position. I'm going to see what I have in my lineups here as we're rounding out.
5 is a really hard number to get.
It's a really hard number to land on. It's
even Matt Breida's over 5%.
Yeah, so I'm going to go to 8%. I'm just going to say Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, I agree with you if you extend it to 8%. If you force me to pick under 5, I'm saying Damian Pierce if I have to do 5.
Let me double check how much Mostert I ended up. The Hostert with the Mostert. Not enough. Not enough is the answer.
Not enough.
Yep. Not enough. Let's take a look at Malcolm Revamp. Eric, for $3. He doesn't even care about you, Matt, but I love you, Matt. I think you're going to answer too. For $3, FanDuel GPP, who is your must plays? Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown. I will also say, again, running back is a wildly different position over on FanDuel today, even though I didn't end up playing over there, just, making sure that I can give the people the good information over here. Let me pull up top plays for me there. Okay. Definitely David Montgomery on both sides. I know David Montgomery more expensive, but I don't care. I would be playing him on FanDuel as well. Sam Laporta, way too cheap at tight end over on FanDuel. And then last one in, I will say Jamar Chase for both DraftKings and FanDuel as well. Must play.
Yeah, I think Hurts is a must play over there. Like for reference, he's only 300 more than Anthony Richardson. And I love Anthony Richardson, but part of the reason I'm getting more of him on DraftKings is the price difference. David Montgomery, I think, is awesome on both sites. David Montgomery is an absolute wagon. And to be honest with you, I have a little more interest in Justin Jefferson over on FanDuel for pricing reasons too.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Again, Justin Jefferson, I would never sit up here and tell you that he's a bad play on any slate. And some people would say, oh, what about that Packers game from last year? He looked pretty, huh? No. One game. Like, let's all chill. Let's all chill. Also, Kirk Cousins has not been the problem with Minnesota this season. He has not been the problem. Hasn't been the answer. Just saying, like,
what's the problem?
I'm talking to my Minnesota people that are still just like, oh, we should get rid of Cousins. We got to start over. It's like, we might have to just get rid of him to get something back at this point because he doesn't have a contract for next year. Great job, guys. Good job. Good effort.
You're probably too good to get one of the elite quarterbacks.
Yep. We are so screwed. Welcome to NFL purgatory, where being good is actually being bad, and being bad is the best case situation from time to time, especially when Caleb Williams is in the draft. My God.
Well, in your case, I think you just take as many shots on quarterback as possible, like the Eagles did. So then you get a second round Hurts. And a lot of years you probably miss, but you keep taking shots until you hit a guy.
Or you hope the Bears somehow get this number 1 pick still, and then they trade it away again because they are not very smart at the old football.
They'll definitely do that.
Feels like they're going to do that. All right, 2 minutes to go here. Matt Gajewski, let's get ourselves the heck up out of here. But first of all, Owner's Box, thank you so much for them for sponsoring our program. Check them out. $250 first match deposit bonus. Check in on this overlay. Try to fire up a lineup or two if you can in the last couple of minutes, mainly because overlay, that's your best friend when it comes to DFS. When you're building a bankroll, when you're sustaining a bankroll, when you're trying to win more money, it's better to have fewer pieces or a rake to pay, or in this case, no rake to pay, because that's why it's called overlay. But jump over to Owner's Box, get yourself signed up, get ready to rock. But favorite stack to fire up today, Matt Gajewski?
Indianapolis.
Favorite individual play, sub 15% owned?
Oh, Mostert.
Favorite defense?
New Orleans. Are you going to answer these?
No, I'm not. I'm just rapid firing to you. And also, you think my takes are dumb because Nelly is terrible. Dude,
I asked you about 8 times what you were doing.
No,
with
it's fine.
players.
It's all right. Country grammar, just like quadruple platinum or something.
Okay, just maybe not rap. We don't agree on rap, and that's okay.
Coming up, I was confused. My mama kissing a girl. Come on, son, let's go. Little 50 Cent to round out the show.
I like 50 Cent.
Told Dre from the gate, I carry the heat for you. A little bit of the game too for you.
Also like the game.
The game's fire. Jordan Klein's fire too. Look at him, staring into the ether. Like, is Eric going to keep rapping? He's not going to keep rapping. We're going to get ourselves out of here for sure. He's had a 3.5-hour stream. Give some claps to Jordan Klein here on the way out. I think it's probably the most underappreciated role that we have here at our company at this point in time, considering guys waking up at the absolute ass crack of dawn, getting ready to rock, firing up the goodness for you, and making this a seamless experience for all of us on the fly. Thank you to Jordan Klein, best producer in the game, no question about it, named Jordan Klein. Matt Gajewski, any final words for the people as we get out of here?
Thank you guys for all being here this morning. Appreciate doing it and having a blast this NFL season. So thank you for allowing Eric and I and Jordan to do something that we love.
Go follow him at Matt_Gajewski. He is the college football NFL expert. If it has projections-based intelligence, yeah, he's just really good at what he does. And then I'm okay. I'm at Eric Lindquist. Go follow me there. I'll cover a little MLB afternoon slate. Yeah, we're going to cover that. It's going to be great times. Let's get ourselves the heck up out of here. Go watch some football. Thank you, Jacksonville. Good stuff. Let it carry on. We'll see you guys next week.